So I push on, I push harder, cause I'm strong. I got to push on, I go up. When I feel down, I got to move on. I got to push on, I push on. I push harder, cause I'm strong. I got to push on, I go up. When I feel down, I got to move on. I got to push on. When the waves around me rise and I can't see my way, yeah. When the billows do roll, no, I'm not afraid. Oh no, 'cause my anchor holds on a rock that won't break. Oh no, just keep holding on, 'cause the storms will fade away. 1, 2, 3. So I push on, I push harder, 'cause I'm strong. I got to push on, go up. When I feel down, I got to move on. I got to push on, push on. I push harder, 'cause I'm strong. I got to push on, go up. When I feel down, I got to move on. I got to push on, push on. I push harder, 'cause I'm strong. I got to push on, go up. When I feel down, I got to move on. I got to push on, push on. I push harder, 'cause I'm strong. I got to push on, go up. When I feel down, I got to move on. I got to push on.
Good morning, everyone. I am so happy that you're joining us today. Thank you. Thank you. You're going to have an amazing time. Today's conference is about leadership, leading from any seat. Good leaders possess self-awareness. On their journey, they garner credibility, they focus on relationship building, they have a bias for action. They exhibit humility, they empower others, they stay authentic, they present themselves as constant and consistent, and above all, they are role models and are fully present. Good morning, buenos dias. Welcome to the Embracing Our Changing Community, Leading from Any Seat. Embracing Our Changing Community is the annual conference of the Intercultural Advocacy Institute and the Hispanic Leadership Council. My name is Yariris Garcia, Community Engagement Manager at the Juvenile Welfare Board. Each year, the Embracing Our Changing Community Conference brings together a variety of presenters, service providers, professionals, educators, community organizers, students, and more to learn about diversity, equity, and inclusion. During the past 16 years, this conference has addressed many diversity-related topics, including race, ethnicity, socioeconomic divides, gender, culture, sexuality, abilities and disabilities, religion, power, and much more. Before we get started this morning's program, I would like to introduce Andrea Vendetti, Director of Community Engagement at the Intercultural Advocacy Institute and Chair of the Hispanic Leadership Council, to take a moment to recognize and acknowledge our sponsors who helped to make today's event possible and not cost to you. Welcome, Andrea.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Vendetti, and I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Hispanic Leadership Council. The council was established in 2006 under the esteemed leadership of Maria Edmonds, always in our hearts. It operates within the Intercultural Advocacy Institute Hispanic Outreach Center, funded by JWB. It comprises over 30 member organizations that collaboratively support the mission of the Hispanic Center and serve the needs of the rapidly growing Hispanic community through public education, advocacy, enhanced services, and the elimination of barriers. On behalf of the Hispanic Leadership Council, I would like to welcome and thank each one of you for being here today and for your unwavering support to our mission and the work we do. I also want to extend my gratitude to the Diversity Conference Committee for the outstanding efforts in organizing this conference and for their dedication to the Hispanic Leadership Council. I would especially like to express our deepest gratitude to our valued diversity leader sponsor, James. Their generous support has made today's event possible at no cost to our attendees. Raymond James' commitment to our cause has not only enabled us to host this event, but also allowed us to continue our work without financial constraints. We're profoundly grateful to their partnership and dedication. Throughout the years, the Council has worked hard in areas of critical needs: school achievement, access to healthcare, access to vital community information, and language barriers. One of our major achievements has been engaging the involvement of community organizations and individuals in holding a conference on cultural competency. In 2010, the committee planned, organized, and held our first successful conference entitled Embracing Our Changing Community. This is now our 14th conference, Leading from Any Seat. We trust that the conference will be both enjoyable and enlightening for you. Thank you again for your participation and enjoy the conference.
Thank you so much, Andrea, for your commitment, advocacy, dedication, and for always empowering our Latino community. We have a great agenda for you, as Andrea mentioned. You will hear from amazing panelists who are going to share their experiences as leaders leading from any seat. You will also hear from them that we all have this power to lead from any seat while having the capacity to evoke changes in our organization and community. As leaders, we are always giving 100% and sometimes 110% of us. Our last panelist will share tools and strategies to make sure that we have endurance, resiliency, and energy to impact our community. I want to hear from you. Can you write on the chat, how are you taking care of yourself, physically, mentally, and spiritually? I want to hear from you. What are some of the tools? What are some of the strategies? I want to see this chat to be active because guess what? At the end of the program, we will announce a special prizes. Please share with us, what are you doing to take care of yourself? All of this is possible thanks to the coordination and hard work for almost a year from the members of the Diversity Committee, with whom I have the pleasure to work with. If you want to be part of this amazing but small but mighty committee, please write your name or information in the chat, and one of us will reach out to you. Maria will also write in the chat the email where you can send us a message and join us for next year's journey. Oh, I see a lot of comments. Hot yoga, spending time with my family, prioritizing self-care, study, exercising, walking and spending time, talking, spending more time with grandkids. Amazing. Thank you. Gardening, one of my favorite home projects. Thank you so much. I encourage you throughout the morning to use the chat box, which you're already doing it, to share your thoughts, highlighting any powerful messages or phrases you hear from our speakers which resonate with you, and why the message speaks to you, your organization, or the work that you do in our community. For questions that you would like to direct to the speakers, please use the Q&A box, and a handful will be selected this morning due to our limited time. Other responses will be sent in a follow-up email after the conference. This is a reminder that the session this morning is being recorded. Also, closed caption is available for all participants throughout the conference. We will post this recording at the Hispanic Outreach Center's webpage. Those in attendance will receive a notification when the video is posted. Leadership has always been associated with the role of authority, academics accomplishments, socioeconomic status, and more. However, it has been proven that some of the most impactful changes in society have been ignited by individuals with convictions. Leadership is a courageous journey that requires persistence and endurance. This journey begins with basic principles such as leading by example, courageously doing what is right, and aligning all decision-making to integral core values. At this time, I have the privilege of introducing our moderator for the first two panels, Leading from Any Seat, followed by From Community Needs to Impactful Change. My co-chair and the moderator of this panel is an amazing woman, an amazing leader in our community, Maria Pepe. As a community engagement director, Maria leads a team of 10 community partnership specialists throughout Empath Health Services area. She develops plans for strategic outreach and education on hospice care, self-care for caregivers, HIV services, aging in place, grief, advanced care planning, laughter for wellness, and more. Maria served as chairwoman of the Hispanic Leadership Council for many years, and she is the co-chair of this amazing committee, alongside with me and other amazing team members. She's also a member of 211 Tampa Bay Care's Board of Directors. In 2017, Maria began volunteering for the Alzheimer's Association as a certified support group facilitator, providing support for caregivers of dementia patients and ensuring their awareness of community resources. For more than 18 years and in different capacities, Maria has provided advocacy, case management, information, and referral services to underserved communities. Maria is a firm believer in the statement that knowledge is power. Therefore, she works closely with her leadership, her team, community members, service providers, and the faith-based community to engage and educate all communities on several issues affecting the well-being, progress, and access to healthcare. Maria is originally from Venezuela, go Venezuela, where she graduated from the School of Law at la Universidad Católica Andrés Bello, class of 2000. She now calls the United States her home and lives in Pinellas County with her husband and 2 children. Bienvenida, Maria.
Thank you, Yaya. And I think I have someone cheering for my alma mater, Universidad Católica Andrés Bello. Yay, Ucavistas. Good morning, everyone. And thank you again, Yaridis. It's always a pleasure to co-chair and lead any project with you. You are amazing and a true leader. You lead with a lot of humility, but you are very assertive, and we appreciate every single direction and guidance that you give us. So again, part of leadership is planning for the unexpected. Part of leadership is having that plan B, succession plans. Part of leadership is leaning on your team. So our dear Darius, Dionise Darius from Raymond James couldn't be here today, but he knew because of his strong leadership skills that us as a team, we will pull through. So guess what, team? and attendees, you have me this morning. So I am super excited to lead these panels, as I know many of them, many of the panelists, and I admire all of them. So with that, I don't want to take more time, but I would like to energize this conference today, Friday, August 9th, 2024, reminding that just like every vote counts, and don't worry, we're not going to get into politics, every voice counts. So today we will be exploring all those dimensions of leadership and what makes natural leaders grow and thrive. And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing our first amazing group of panelists. So with that, help me welcome our amazing panelists. And I will be reading from notes because I don't want to escape anything right now. So our first panelist is a dementia researcher and TED Talk speaker. He also had a Super Bowl commercial appearance. So please welcome Carlos Caballero. Carlos, turn on your camera and audio. We want to see you. There you go.
Hey, can everybody see me?
Yes, good morning.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everybody. It's just want to say, thank you to the servant leaders who have helped put this incredible program together. Just want to give a round of applause if you can, wherever you are. What's up, embracing changing community? What's up? Yes, I don't have a lisp. I'm saying WASP because WASP is an acronym for We Are Stronger Together. WASP up. So look around if you have a neighbor beside you. I know many of you are by yourself, but if you have a neighbor beside you, look at them and say, "What's up?"
Absolutely. Now that's going to be some of the takeaways today. I can promise you that.
Yeah. So hold on to that acronym WASP for now, and we'll talk about it later. Okay. But yeah, thank you again to the servant leaders who put this together. Yesterday, I celebrated 9 years of marriage with my beautiful wife, Christy.
Congratulations.
And I have the honor to be a father to two beautiful, handsome boys, Luca and Nico. And our family loves any activity that includes the words pool or beach. So that's where we spend most of our time. I currently work for an incredible organization called Empath Health. Maria might know a little bit about them. She's a wonderful colleague of mine, and feel very blessed and thankful to be part of that team and serve under business development for Tidewell Hospice Division. And yeah, like Maria mentioned, during my college years, I had the wonderful opportunity to work with a world-renowned dementia care researcher named Teepa Snow. And together I was able to co-author in a peer-reviewed journal with Teepa Snow, with Dr. Katie Ellman and her team. And just a pleasure to be a part of that experience, helped me grow as a servant leader. And also helping older adults navigate the complex healthcare system is truly a passion of mine. Helping them, anybody really, navigate that complex healthcare system is a passion of mine. So one of the things I want to say real quick, so you get to know me in this beginning, is that my mentors have taught me two very important values. And one of them is sometimes the only way out is through. Again, sometimes the only way out is through. And the other one is taking small steps is better than no steps. Again, taking small steps is better than no steps. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for the consideration to join us today. And together we can lead from any seat.
Thank you, Carlos. So I feel I have FOMO right now, fear of missing out, because these are the things that when I'm behind the scene, I'm taking notes of all of this. Thank God these webinar is being recorded, because I'm going back and listen to all the lessons that you have learned from your mentors, but also what I will be learning from you today. And again, you mentioned something. Some of this already came when you were in college, a student, talking about leading from any seat. Incredible. Thank you, Carlos. And I would like to follow with another panelist. I had the honor of seeing him here and there in a couple events, but I've heard the best amazing things about Paul Valenti. He is a human and civil rights champion with 25 years of experience. So thank you, Paul. And I know that you are incredible and we admire you, but also you are married to a Venezuelan woman. So Venezuela is
Claro
in
que
the
sí.
house.
Claro que sí. I was actually thank you, Maria, and all for inviting me to this important and impactful conversation. As Maria said, my name is Paul Valenti. I have the privilege of working at St. Petersburg College, but to Maria's point, more importantly, I have the privilege of being married to a wonderful Venezuelan woman. So we keep that country and their troubles in our hearts and our prayers. It's just shameful what's going on. But look, on a more positive and impactful note this morning, I also come to this conversation with about 25 years leadership experience in human and civil rights. I started with the Connecticut Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities. I've been blessed to, and many of you might know me from my time serving as the Human Rights Director for Pinellas County, Florida. And then I spent a little bit of time with the federal government as the director of the EEOC's Miami District Office. But I'm happy to be back in Pinellas County. I'm proud to be a member of St. Petersburg College, and I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have with this panel and throughout the day. So thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. So Carlos and Paul, leave your camera on. We're going to get into the whole group discussion. So next in this panel, we have a community impact activist and the co-founder of and executive director for 360 Eats. So please welcome Cameron McLeish. You know, Cameron, that I have been secretly stalking 360 Eats. I admire the work that you have put together, converting like an idea into a community impact. So that's leadership. I know Ellen couldn't be with us today for other commitments, but it is a pleasure to have you because I know that we are going to learn so much from you. So Cameron, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate it. It's good to see you as well. It's been a little while. Yeah, my name is Cameron. I am the co-founder and the executive director of 360 Eats. We're a Pinellas-based nonprofit. As Maria said, unfortunately, my mom can't make it today. She's got some things going on, but she's our talented executive chef. She's the magic behind all of our meals and community work that we do here in Pinellas. Started this back in 2020, and a lot of people tell me that really in the midst of the pandemic, and actually that was the perfect time to be starting our initiative. Essentially, what we do is we bridge the gaps between food insecurity and food waste. So we've come up with what we feel is an innovative 360-degree solution, hence the name 360 Eats, that transforms rescued food, so good, fresh, surplus food that would otherwise go to waste from local food providers in the area into nutritious, gourmet, high-quality chef-prepared meals for those who are facing food insecurity. And some of our hardest-hit communities here in Pinellas County. We also have a composting program that works with community gardens to turn food scraps from rescued food into nutrient-rich compost to grow more produce for communities in need. And recently, actually in March, we just launched a new program called Culinary Cultivators, which is a job training program for young adults with barriers to employment. It's a 6-month program. They get paid $20 an hour. It's part-time. We work with them to find other work alongside the internship. And they get to work alongside our chefs in a professional kitchen, professional setting, helping us produce meals, work with rescued food. They learn everything from menu planning to food safety. And at the end of the 6 months, they we work with them to place them in a job as a chef here in the area, so that they can support themselves and achieve both financial and food security. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much again. It's an absolute privilege and pleasure, and I look forward to the conversation that we're about to have.
Thank you, Cameron. As you can see, it's like it's one of those moments where you wonder, what am I doing with my life? Look at how, people who believe in a cause gather, they start the paperwork little by little. Like you said, Carlos, there are no these small steps, and here we are, 360 Eats, and it's a pleasure to have you today, this morning, Cameron. And again, we're going to be learning so much from each other and inspiring each other. So lastly, the reason why we're all here today, so this panelist was the founder CEO for the Intercultural Advocacy Institute and Hispanic Outreach Center. She began this adventure with Maria Edmonds of putting this conference together to bridge gaps. That's what we do. And Sandra, I can extend a little bit more from the notes that Dee had, because Sandra is my personal mentor. She's my former CEO, my former boss, and is someone that not only dear to me, but to my goals, to my family. And we are very excited to have you, Sandra, and having this conference after these many years, full circle. So here you are in panel number 1, leading from any seat. So welcome, Sandra.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's just an honor to be here. And it's a real pleasure to see the other panelists, particularly Mr. Valenti, who remembers me well from some of my more probably strident activist days. I guess I came to this work originally because I was from Canada, and I spent many years in corrections. But when I moved here, what I really wanted to do was something that would address what I saw as language and cultural gaps in particularly Clearwater, but all of Pinellas. Being a Canadian, of course, I'm used to seeing everything in 2 languages. And when I moved here, what I found was that there were 14% of the population in Clearwater was Hispanic Latino. There were obviously immigrant people everywhere. There was not one brochure, not one sign, nothing from the community, from the city side, the county side, anything to acknowledge that there was such a change going on, a transformation in the community. And I thought, oh, I probably do know a little about that. So I went to apply for a job at the YWCA in St. Petersburg, and I'm sure that the CEO was a bit shocked, because she thought she was interviewing me, and I said, look, there are 2 things I want to do here in Pinellas County. I want to learn to speak Spanish, which I've not really done a great job of, and I want to do something for the Hispanic Latino community. Like, that's my priority. If you hire me, that's what I'm going to do. I'll do your other stuff for you that you want, but that's what I'm going to do. And that was January 2000, and by September 2000, we had funding for youth program in Clearwater for Hispanic girls, and we had the partnership with the Clearwater Police Department in place, and we were looking for a center that would be something like maybe a house or something, and we ended up the city acquired the Hispanic Outreach Center for us. And so for me to see all of you leaders running this conference is just heartwarming, because I've known all of you for years. and I just am so admiring of the careers that you have forged, the differences that you've made in this community. It's more than we ever envisaged, and I'm delighted to talk about it today. So Maria, I know you have questions for all of us, and we will get into some of the details, but thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you so much. So just a quick note about being an inclusive leader and like things that I am here because the opportunity is given to me as a young professional with a much stronger accent when I first started working at the Hispanic Outreach Center. So quick fact, so Sandra is just moving around for another room, but again, that's what happens with technology. So we look for always for the better signals, etc. So she'll be back with us in a second, but I know she's listening. So I can share with you just really quick that Sandra, when she hired me to work at the Hispanic Outreach Center, I was 7 months pregnant with my second child. So I just didn't know exactly, where my journey was going to take me. But I really needed to make a change in careers. And again, inclusive leadership. I couldn't hide the fact that soon I was going to be out of the office for some time. But not only the hiring practices, but the accommodations. And when we have in the realm of helping people grow. So if that doesn't tell you just one clue about inclusive leadership, inclusive hiring practices, and accommodation just to help young professionals thrive, or any professionals, again, we're going to be sharing that kind of stories. So with that, I would like to formally now kick off the conversation on this panel. So I want to start with you, Carlos. So if you could give me examples of how we can create environments where voices and interests of multiple stakeholders are heard, honored, and addressed.
Absolutely, Maria. You'll kind of learn a little bit that I like participation from the audience. So if you are in a room by yourself, just say it out loud after me. The word is Kaizen. Say it out loud if you're there, and then look at your neighbor and say Kaizen. So the Japanese concept of Kaizen emphasizes the continual improvement of systems by eliminating waste. Kaizen is telling us that making small changes constantly will eventually create huge results. So you all have heard of two different companies, Blockbuster and Netflix, right? Everybody's heard of them. So I was just curious. So this morning, right before I got on, I Googled Blockbuster's current net worth. And you may imagine that the answer is very unclear. In fact, the latest number was from 2010. So that tells you a little bit about their current net worth if we can't find anything in Google for current 2024. And I also Googled Netflix and their net worth, and it said as of this morning, $262 billion. So I just wanted to put that into perspective. Now we're going to go into details. So many people love that Hollywood Cinderella story, right? That Netflix like just one day sparked an idea and boom, completely changed the world with the way we see videography, right? And cinema features. But that's absolutely false. So the co-founder of Netflix, Mark Randolph, and the other co-founder, Reed Hastings, they've written books and they've told their story in different places and venues. But it goes something along the lines where they would actually be carpooling to work many times, and they would just throw out ideas. And one of these ideas one time came up that, hey, why don't we mail CDs and DVDs to people, and see how that goes. And that's kind of how the whole idea started. Reed, the co-founder, is the brilliant, one of the brilliant minds behind it. And he said, okay, let me think about all the pros and cons. So all these testings took about 2 to 3 years and 500 to 600 trials before they figured it out and became Netflix. In fact, during those 2 to 3 years, they spent probably 6 months trying to get a hold of Blockbuster to save them. And they had a meeting with their big CEO leaders at Blockbuster because Netflix wanted to try to sell Netflix to Blockbuster so that Blockbuster could save them from bankruptcy. And during the meeting, Mark says that, you know, the big question came up, which is Blockbuster asked Netflix, how much do you want for your company? And Mark had already practiced it and went over the number, and he said $50 million. That's because they were negative $50 million at the time. And as I had said before, they're currently worth $262 billion. But they were trying to sell at that time to Blockbuster for $50 million. And one of the big things is that Mark is saying that it wasn't like a Cinderella story or turn right away, but it was these 500 to 600 steps in between that got us to where we are today. And we continually improve by utilizing that methodology of Kaizen, of continually eliminating waste to improve and get better, right? And one of the big things I love about Mark is that he talks about the story of when the two co-founders got together in a meeting and they were starting to boom. Netflix was starting to boom. And Mark at the time was the main CEO of Netflix. But Reed had a lot more experience with building brands. And Reed and Mark had a very, very serious meeting. And Reed had asked Mark to step down from being a CEO because Reed wanted to take over and become the CEO of Netflix and have Mark be his second man instead of being the first man. And it was a very humbling thing for Mark. But in the end, Mark was thinking ahead, right? And he was thinking, you know, if I step down and I'm right under Reed, then I believe that we will grow even more as a team. And so for me, that example speaks boldly that he didn't quit. He maybe could have been fired if he didn't agree to that. But he said, you know, I'm going to step down. I'm going to humble myself, and I'm going to let somebody with a lot more experience and caliber lead, and I'm going to learn from them, and we're going to work together to grow. So I think that's just a great example. My second example of Kaizen is something that I've been working on at Empath Health under the Tidewell Hospice Division. Empath Health created a group of different colleagues that are eager, that are excited, that are passionate about change and about transformation. And Empath Health chose colleagues from all kinds of different backgrounds and departments to come together and create different committees. And one of the committees that I am fortunate to be a part of is the Ideation Committee. And we're constantly meeting every month and coming up with new ideas and creating ways that we can be, our group of individuals can be the voice for the thousands of colleagues that we serve with. And so that's the focus there. And also just to be not only their voices, but we focus on building camaraderie, building synergy amongst colleagues, building transparency as an organization, and creating a colleague mindset of Kaizen. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. And about the colleague champion committees that you're describing with Empath Health. So the idea of these committees is they're all colleagues. No one there is a supervisor of a manager. They're leaders. but they're not in the role of supervising others. So it provides that level of collaboration, but in a place where these voices that are very powerful, they know the work, they will be heard because they have the power of working together as WASP. Working together. I need to get to the acronyms really, really soon. So thank you, Carlos, for that. So Sandra, I mentioned one example about working the Hispanic Center many, many, many moons ago for you and Andrea Vendetti, but I still like to hear from you examples that you can give us about creating environments where the voices and interests of multiple stakeholders are heard, honored, and addressed.
Thank you, Maria. I really think we should talk about the Hispanic Leadership Council in that regard. And because it's a multi-organizational organization or committee that brings together people who might be the CEO, might be the executive director, but more likely are representatives who are in key positions that perhaps provide a lot of services for Hispanic Latino people. But they bring together all the realms that an individual needs to be healthy and function well in our community. So the health department, the police department, Empath Health, and Salvation Army. So many organizations have contributed to the Hispanic Leadership Council. And I think all of those kinds of things are useful. So if what we're doing today a little bit is talking to people who are in an organization wondering what you can do, one thing that can be a really good investment of your time is to get yourself on an interagency group. For me, I was a member and then the vice president of the Pinellas County Coalition for the Homeless for a number of years. And I was a member of the home leadership network here. And through that process, met many, many people that I was and happy to know it was work, but yet the opportunity to explore who you are may be bigger or just as big outside your organization to explore leadership opportunities as it might be inside. And then those things can translate back to inside your organization. So there are a number of opportunities like that for people who have interests that are community-wide, let's say. And so some of the things that I think of in the context of what can you do to give a voice are that there are multi-agency activities. Make a Difference Day was always a big thing for us, but we involved everybody. The Salvation Army fed breakfast to everybody at 7:30 in the morning. Wells Fargo Bank was there was just a real community vibe of that. And it wasn't the leadership. It was people who worked in those places. So there are so many opportunities to look for. Some of them are within one's own organization, sure, and some might be outside. So you have to think more broadly, I guess, to look at what the opportunities might be. And so those kinds of forums and other partnerships were very productive for us at the Hispanic Outreach Center, and certainly I think have been rewarding for the people who have participated and worked with us in our committees and helped the community a lot. So those are the kinds of thoughts that I had for that. We can talk a little more as the panel goes on about whether that resonates for you, but that mattered to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And stay tuned, panelists and attendees, because if we have time, there might be an example of creating an environment where voices are heard, but you also promote leadership and accountability. And we may be talking about changing tables for babies, changing diapers, because we have a really cool example about that. So thank you so much, Sandra. So I want to move to Paul. Paul, so with your experience, you probably have heard 1,000 of stories, but it can be also a personal or professional one in your career and life. So what is the greatest challenge to providing opportunity to those who historically have not had a voice at the table in making policy and practice decisions?
Well, it's a great question, so thank you. And it's obviously a continuing challenge. We're woefully inadequate in ensuring that all voices are heard. But here are some things we can do, right? First and foremost, most importantly, make sure that all communities and all voices are actually there. And so if it's from the government perspective or business sector, you have to engage in aggressive outreach. You've got to be in every community, right? And then you need to make sure that those people that you're trying to be inclusive to or with feel valued, right? So that aggressive outreach should give you constancy in those communities to build trust, right? It can't be a one and done kind of a thing. Too often, sadly, when there's an extant need, a community and organization will go out, reach out to the government, will go out into a community, but then be absent until the next time they need to be there, instead of actually being of service, right? So there's the constancy. You have to constantly be in the communities. And that in turn builds trust. It's got to be relationship based, can't be transactional. And then, of course, and Sandra talked about this a little bit, you got to make sure there are no barriers, right? Primarily, different cultures, there's no language barriers. You've got to make sure that if you're serving all communities, that includes necessarily persons with disabilities, so there are no physical or mental barriers. There is inclusivity in that regard and in those regards. And then lastly, I've found, and we joked about this in the planning of this talk a little bit, voices like mine, middle class, middle-aged, white male voices, they tend to get heard pretty well, right? And so sometimes it's not just being an advocate for or making sure other communities are present and everyone's at the table, but sometimes it's actually just shutting up and giving your own seat or your own microphone to folks who don't ordinarily get the chance to speak. So those would be the things that I would point to at least give a better chance of having greater accessibility for communities that haven't had a voice in the past.
Thank you, Paul. And so I just wanted to share really quick, being a Latina involved in the community here in Pinellas County, I've been invited to many committees, etc. And there was one committee that I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing here, because I understood my privilege. I speak both languages. I know how to use technology. My husband is from the United States. He went to school here, college here. So I had knowledge about education here. I have all these privilege. I have an income. I can attend meetings in the middle of the day. So I was having this discussion with my supervisor, and I said, I really don't know what I'm doing there, because I really think they need to hear the voices of those that may not speak two languages, may not understand the education system here in the United States, may not be as familiar with technology. And my supervisor said this to me. She said, if you were picked to be at the table, it was kind of easy, because you were asked to be at the table and you say yes, they met you in the community. So here's what you can do. You can say, I'm maybe not the person that you're looking for, and that's it. They might not do another effort to look for that voice. So now my responsibility is, I know my privilege. I know what I know. Now that I'm sitting at the table, I need to be a voice for a community that may not have all these things. So I needed to now represent even more, and this is when we have to go out and hear the voices, because again, this is a little plug, educational plug out there, as a Hispanic Latina, I'm only one story trying to represent billions from 21 countries. So I needed to now be out in the community hearing those concerns, because I had that seat at the table and I wanted to be at the table, not on the menu. So thank you for that, Paul. It's very encouraging. So I would like to know if Carlos and Cameron would like to add to this. Again, I'm going to quickly repeat the question. What is the greatest challenge to providing opportunity to those who historically might not have had a voice at the table in making policy and practice decisions?
I can jump in. I mean, this has been something that, we're quite a new organization. So this is something that we're learning on a daily basis. How do we best serve the community? And not only just serve them, but how do we include them in what we're doing? And so a lot of that looks like conversations, relationship building, ensuring that, we are inclusive in the work that we do. And Paul made a good comment, as a white male. Oftentimes that looks like stepping aside and letting those who may not have had an opportunity to, speak, have a voice, say what they need to say, and to have that platform to do so. And so a job I had a while ago, my boss had worked for a nonprofit, or had started a nonprofit, and he gave me this really valuable piece of advice. He said the most important thing when running a nonprofit is that you work with the people and not for the people. And that's kind of stuck with me throughout this entire journey. And so, particularly with what we do, we are a community-based organization, and what that looks like is working alongside the community, ensuring that those who are underprivileged, underserved, have just as much of an input and an opportunity to shape the services that we provide, so that they best, assist them. Anyway, so that's kind of my 2 cents.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you so much. Carlos, I see you.
Yeah,
mute.
I'll add a quick note to that. I think it often ends up becoming getting to the point where there is a very drastic story. In my experience, in my college years, there was a research project that I worked on with a population of Marshallese people in the community that I lived in at that time during my college years. And the Marshallese, are a population from the Marshall Islands. And one of the things that happened was that there was a lot of misconception with the health department as to why the Marshallese were not utilizing healthcare. Was it money? Was it time? Was it language barrier? All these different things. And I think it definitely, unfortunately, took a tragic story to help get the ball moving and rolling. And it helped us to grow and to say, hey, how can we continue to build that bridge? So thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Sandra? Oh. Can you all hear me?
On mute there.
I liked what Paul Valenti said about sometimes you need to be present and be involved and be there, and sometimes you need to get out of the way. I think that as a structural leader in the organization that I was responsible for, one thing that contributed to my growth as a person is that for the first time in my life, I was not the expert in what was required to really serve the people that we were there to help. And so I needed the expertise, the cultural competence, the education and the skill of everyone who worked there to even define what the services were that we might offer. And that's a humbling place for the manager to be in. Not many managers get where they are without knowing anything about, I mean, I did know a lot, but I didn't know the specifics of the cultural side. How do you provide services in a culturally competent way to a group that you would like to be of value to? And so really most of my job was listening. On a very basic level, a great deal of what I did was have lunch with everybody in one lunchroom every single day. We would talk about everything, but I probably learned more at that lunch table about cultural difference, about what our clients might need, about what people are really wanting to do, what the staff wanted to do, how they wanted to do it. I learned more at our lunch table than any class I ever took. People were so willing to share with me with their culture, their backgrounds, and
I remember.
food, obviously, but but being humble, I think, as a manager is a real way to make sure that people who are working there have an opportunity to be themselves and share what they know and who they are, and in terms of how to make a difference with the people you serve.
I remember, and I believe last year we started the conference, and I shared with Yaridis and the attendees that we have learned so much from keynote speakers and panelists throughout all these many years of this conference. But if there is one place that we learn is when we sit together and have these conversations as a committee and discuss future topics, etc., because that's how we learn from our humanity, our lived experiences, and our work experiences. So thank you, Sandra. Thank you all. We're getting some questions from the audience, but before then, I would like to move back to Cameron. So some people might feel like powerless. Here and there, we feel powerless, that we don't have a voice, or think that, we're in this battle alone, that no matter what we do, it's not gonna make a difference. So what advice you give to those who are right now listening to this webinar, who might feel this way when it comes to things that are happening in their community, and they may feel, or their workplaces, and they may feel powerless, like we're alone in this battle? What are those advices? Cameron, if you will like to.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it would help if I shared a little bit about my background and how I got to where we are today, because I used to be in those shoes. I used to be someone who thought, how can I, as one individual, make a difference and solve the issues of both food waste and food insecurity. But long story short, I'll do the condensed version because it is a long story. After graduating college, I went traveling. I hit the road. I went traveling. I ended up in Australia, and somehow I stumbled on a community of dumpster divers. So it was people from around the world who sustain themselves off of the good food that grocery stores had thrown away on a daily basis. And this kind of flipped our food system, on its head. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe the sheer scale of waste that I was seeing. And so fast forward, I moved back to the U.S. after a couple of years of traveling, and I worked at a part-time job at a food pantry, and that's when I really started to see the need for food assistance in our community here. Simultaneously, I was doing some dumpster diving here and there. I was living out of my van. I had nothing. I had very little money. My education was in music, a degree that I have not used to this day. And so when you're sitting there seeing these major issues occur in your own community, And at that time I felt absolutely powerless. I was like, how can I do anything about these major issues? And so it was it was a long process, but it was, I think, what the catalyst for it was just, starting off small. Working at that food pantry was a big part of getting to where we are today. And I should say we are still very small. We're still very much growing, but to date, we've rescued, I believe, almost 250,000 pounds of food from going to waste, and we've served, I believe, a little over 45,000 meals since in Pinellas County since 2020. And that started just by immersing myself in the community and talking with the community, and seeing where the needs were, where the gaps are, where the holes are, and researching and step by step. I guess a lot of people, especially me at that point, I thought, I can be an impatient person sometimes, and I thought, how can I make a difference now? How can I make an impact now? And I end up, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? I end up kind of sabotaging my trajectory, if you will, because I think, there's just so much to do that it's such a big task to accomplish. But it's, when you do baby steps, slow and steady, I think that was kind of what helped me, and just slowly, learning about the needs of the community and interacting with the community. And so yeah, I mean, I was there at one point, living in my van, dumpster diving. I had absolutely no money, but I think, through perseverance and, dedication, and knowing that you're not alone in the journey. There's a lot of amazing people here in our community that also want to see, that want the best for our community. And so I think networking is a really key thing too, that, sometimes I'm definitely one of those people who sometimes I feel like it's just easier to do it myself. But, I have seen so much impact happen by working with others in our community. And I owe, where we are at today, I owe that 100% to the community, to the people that have supported us along the way. I mean, there's no way that we would have had the impact that we've had without other people involved. And so, not being afraid to reach out for support and ask others for guidance. You'd be amazed how many people would happily sit down and have a chat with you over coffee to give you their expertise or share their 2 cents, or maybe connect you with individuals that could help you achieve your mission and your goals. So yeah, I think, does that answer the question? I think that answers the question.
Very much so. But
Okay.
I want to move to Paul in a second to answer the same question. But Cameron, I would like to, people transfer their fears onto us. So you have this idea and someone is going to say, everybody's doing that now. That market is saturated, or no one is going to believe you. No one is going to give you a loan. No one is going to give you that grant, But we also have that person that says something like, go for it. What can I do? I'll go with you and apply for a permit or something. So could you share with me one story of those that put a negative thought on you, the moment that you say, you know what, I have this vision, and share with us one story of that person that said one thing and that was super valuable to you?
In terms of them saying, that's not going to work type of thing. Is that what you're asking? And then
Yes.
So obviously I'm not going to name names, but yeah, I've had individuals in the past. The supplemental food service here, and there's a lot of amazing initiatives in our community that are working to feed our community, and it is a little saturated with in particular with food banks and food pantries and things like that. And so when we first started, we had a lot of people that had said along the lines of, well, good luck getting a grant, good luck finding any support, and this, that, and the other. And I don't see that as kind of a negative. I think that's more, if anything, I took that into consideration, and it kind of helped us navigate. It's really important, like in the work that we do, that you know, and I hear it a lot, you know, not to duplicate services, but you know, the way that I see it is that we haven't solved the issue of food insecurity yet. There's still thousands of people across the county that are in dire need of food assistance, and so the way that I see it is that, you know, we need more. We need more of this work, and so you know, I think it was helpful in helping us kind of navigate where we wanted to go and where the gaps that we wanted to fill, you know, which is very important. But you know, yeah, I mean, I saw it more so as like some sound advice that you know, okay, maybe it might be a little bit more challenging if we go this route, but over here there's a huge need for this service, and this might be an area that we can kind of, you know, so I think that's kind of yeah, and again, a big part of what we do is like, you know, it's the innovative piece, right? You know, like we want to, when it comes to meal services here in the county, there are, while there are some, but there were some gaps that we saw, and that was kind of where we wanted to fill in those gaps. But yeah, hopefully I answered that question. Right?
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Okay.
because I think this is part of leadership, and we're growing together in this conference, and we're learning. So one thing that I'm learning from that is that you didn't take that to go home and just feel bad about your idea. You took those comments as, these are things that I need to consider so I can make my initiative more appealing for funders, more attractive to the community, to increase trust. So thank you, Cameron. Absolutely. Again, FOMO, I'm missing the chance to be taking notes because I'm all in helping moderate these amazing panels. So thank you so much. So I'm going to Paul. So again, people feel powerless. People feel that they don't have a voice and that they are in these actions alone. So what advice will you give to those that feel that they are in this alone, that they don't have a voice, that they feel powerless?
Sure. It's going to be hard to top, though, the insights that we got from Cameron, because it was not just responsive, but it was inspirational, right? But it reminded me of, many of you may have heard of the anthropologist Margaret Mead, and she's famous for one of her quotes, which is that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And I really believe that that's true, inspirational, and reflected in history, right? Whether it's, if you go back to ancient times, 300 Spartan warriors holding off hundreds of thousands of Persians, whether you come forward to Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta seeing real injustices in migrant farm worker communities and organizing the United Farm Workers for better living and working conditions. Whether you see a mother like Candace Leitner, who lost her daughter to a drunk driver, and with other like-minded parents formed Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and really changed the cultural perception of driving under the influence from, oh, how funny, or joking about it, or go home and sleep it off, to, no, this is risky behavior, and there's gonna be consequences for people who pose a substantial and unjustified risk to the community by engaging in that risky behavior, right? So I guess to kind of capstone it, what I would say is, you know, if you look through our history, some of the biggest fires that burned through the history books started with a spark, right? One person, one small ember. But from that, a roaring fire came forward. So I would say no hope and don't give up.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. So we're getting questions from our audience, our attendees, and one of them is actually in a match to some of the conversations that we had preparing for today's panel discussion. So we're going to talk about small wins. Those are the small steps. So I'm going to start with Carlos. What are some small wins that you can highlight from your experience that have kept you motivated to stay the course as an advocate or ally for others within your workplace or your community? Tell me about those small steps or small wins that have kept you motivated.
Absolutely, Maria. Everybody, again, repeat after me. Recognition gets repeated. Again, recognition gets
Recognition
repeated.
gets repeated.
So all the managers out there or all the parents out there, remember, recognition gets repeated. So one of the things that our team at Empath Health and Tidewell Hospice created was a recognition committee that was made of individuals, and I think I'm not exactly sure of the number, but last year our team came up with an idea, and there was many people who had already been working on this idea of how can we create a colleague experience in our organization of recognition, because we strongly believe that recognition gets repeated. So our team came up with recognition medals. And I think that's definitely a small win to celebrate, that our organization is slowly but surely changing every day, and wondering how can I use a recognition medal today to recognize a colleague who has done an incredible job and gone above and beyond, right? And to this day, I don't have the exact number, but I know that I think within the first 6 months of the program being started, we hit about 365 recognition medals, which means that's more than 2 per day. That means that out of these 1,000 colleagues, there's for sure 2 people being recognized, and the whole organization is seeing that recognition through our colleague website. So that was definitely a huge win. And another big win is the WAST. So again, I said, remember the We Are Stronger Together acronym. And one of the things that will forever impact me and the things that I do is this WAST, right? And saying to people, "What's up?" Right? So our business development team is always thinking of creative ideas to build a bridge between the community, those we have the privilege to serve, and healthcare services, and our community partners. And so We Are Stronger Together, WAST, the acronym really took to life when our team created a mini golf tournament called the Tidewell Hospice WAST Mini Golf Tournament. And what we were doing is being able to create a fun environment, competitive environment where staff members from different facilities in healthcare and healthcare facilities in the area were having fun learning about healthcare services, but also putt-putting and learning that we are stronger together in that sense. So I think, in a way, the small wins are when members from different departments, from different backgrounds come together and respectfully talk about differences and communicate about those. And in this instance, the We Are Stronger Together mini golf tournament could not have been possible without multiple departments like marketing and communications and clinical operations and business development and more coming together and saying, how can we create, build a bridge of this collaboration and communication between Tidewell Hospice, Empath Health, and the staff who are every day caring for elders in our community.
Thank you, Carlos. I love the small wins, and the recognition allow for peer-to-peer support, because as we are in now this remote environment, everyone, I think, you know, we belong to an organization, we belong to an employer or to a company, to this business, you know, we work for this business, but a lot of people are out and about doing good work. So this system that colleagues, it was from colleagues to colleagues, allow for anyone that witness anything that is in alignment with our values and that person going above and beyond can now create a moment for that person and spotlight the good work. Because waiting for a year to have to go by to sit with your supervisor and hear about the good work, you know, is that really what's moving the needle every day when we get up and say, okay, what is my mission today? So having that level of peer-to-peer support. And so thank you, Carlos. I want to move to Sandra, because Sandra, again, founder of the Intercultural Advocacy Institute, Hispanic Outreach Center, helping us in leadership. You probably have a long list of small wins. So share with us those small steps, those small wins, an experience that inspired us today.
Thank you. I do have a list. And can I tell a story also? Would that be all right? Okay. So one of the things that I think are small wins, this is not a story, but is all the people who've worked with us who've gotten degrees while they have worked at the Hispanic Center. So many people went back to school, including our own students have gone to school and earned degrees. And that's always been just a wonderful moment for me to see. My story, though, is that if I have a weakness in many ways, it's that I always am trying to be polite and professional. And sometimes when you're trying to advocate, you have to take that off a little bit and be more direct. And it's hard for me. So my example was in the Mexican community, probably a good part of Latin America, International Day of the Child is a big thing. And the local Mexican groups had a Day of the Child activity in Clearwater for years that they put on, they funded, and then the city got involved with helping to.
Did we lose Sandra?
Yeah, I think we lost her.
Oh, okay. So we're having some difficulty with our technology. While she comes back, I think she's coming back soon. So while Sandra gets back, and I want to hear about that story, working with our Mexican American community. So let's go over some of the questions that we have from our audience. So I want to go to, let's go to Paul for a second. How do you help employees see the value towards the mission of an organization, no matter the position they hold?
That's actually a great question. And I don't know if this is fully responsive, but I think it captures the spirit of this. I'm sure you've heard a lot of you heard the story of a tour being taken of NASA, and somebody asked one of the custodial staff, "What do you do?" And they respond, "I launch rockets." And the spirit here is that every step, everything that's done in that facility is all ultimately at the end of the day with the mission of we launch rockets, we put people on the moon. And if you give a more comfortable working environment for those who are designing the rockets to then help the doctors who are attending to the health of it's all holistic, it all ties together, and we're all tied together by a web of humanity, so that there is no small act. There's no, it's mutually supportive and it's mutually beneficial. So I would say you just help folks to recognize that what we do, your role is towards that end.
Mm-hmm.
No matter where you are, you're helping us with our mission, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. So when Sandra comes back, again, we go back to the small wins or stories. So for now, I would like to ask Carlos or Cameron, tell me about an incident that stood out, that helped you change your views on your leadership, where you stood at that moment in your journey, in your organization, workplace, that moment that helped you change views.
I think for me, it was, you know, a lot of the communities that we serve in, I didn't grow up in, you know, and so for me, you know, as I guess a community leader, you know, the minute you immerse yourself in those communities, that changes your entire, you know, the entire way that you I guess you lead, right? Because now you're learning about the needs, the wants of that particular community. And so so I think, you know, we do a lot of work in the North Greenwood Food Desert. And the first time that we had launched our service there, it was a very eye-opening experience, you know, because you're being introduced to a community that, you know, I hadn't had a connection with before, and you're building those relationships and really seeing what those families and individuals are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. And so right off the bat, you know, the gears start turning, and it's like, how can I best assist this community, and how can I lead with them, you know? So I think honestly, for me, being so new to this, every single day is that learning experience, and you know, I'm constantly changing, you know, the way that I operate, and you know, so yeah.
It's the eye opener. Thank you, Cameron, because we know about community needs until we put our boots on the ground and we're like, oh, okay. So with that, Sandra, you were talking about the small wins, and I know you are a leader on creating amazing partnerships. So please, if you could follow up and continue with your story about working with and for, but with, like Cameron said, with our Mexican-American community in Clearwater.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry our video got interrupted there. And so I went to talk to I did the right thing. I went to talk to the person at the city that I should have talked to. And he said, oh, this decision's been made. It's above my level. You'll have to talk to somebody else. And I thought, yeah, and probably not this year. The deadline had passed. So I waited. And the person who was really responsible for having made the decision left their job very precipitously. And I thought, this is my moment. I went to talk to the city manager. I didn't tell anybody I was doing this. I went to talk to the city manager, and I had my little, you know, my very polite, please, when you're going to hire for this position, would you please consider making the sensitivity to the Hispanic, Latino, particularly the Mexican community, a big part of your hiring decision? Please, could you do that? And of course, he was no fool. And it took him about 15 minutes to get the story out of me. And finally, by the time he did, we were having almost a nose-to-nose conversation. And I remember telling the city manager, who's an African-American man, so here's me, a white woman in an African-American man's office, saying, listen, we both know that racism can be very subtle, but when you're on the receiving end of it, you know it. And he looked at me, he said, thank you. We need to talk more often. We had a very successful meeting. I left having no idea what he was going to do, but it was the Mexican community that came to me after, and they were laughing. They said, what did you do to get the day back? Because International Day of the Child is just so important for that community. And that felt like I had taken my identity and put it aside and been just, you know, speaking for a community that I cared a lot about, and it didn't matter what I had to do to make my point. So I think Paul Valenti's been on the receiving end of me talking like that about wage theft too, but I'll leave that up to him to do. But small wins, really persuading the sheriff to appoint a Hispanic liaison officer, lieutenant, now Captain Paniagua, has just been a real benefit to the community. And the sheriff told me clearly, Sandra, we've talked about this many times. And I told him, I think the situation's changed, but he took the time to listen to me. And I think what I wanted to say about small wins is that my efforts anyway, and I think yours, Maria, and those of others, is to have people who don't either see or don't really want to see or don't feel the need to see people who are not like themselves, see them, like to see people as people is just so important. And the small wins have almost always been where I could get someone else to see something the way that I was seeing it. And so those were the stories that came to mind when you wanted me to address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. And so here's something that we can do. Sandra, Paul, Carlos, Cameron, and I, we can share our contact information with you, because in that way you can follow up with us and we can tell you again the story of the changing table. And we can even move to all the way to the story of how we started a little list of people that were not being paid for their work, and how just by having those conversations at the water cooler or at the lunch table, we started to realize we have a problem. And at some point, what are we going to do about it? So those questions, again, connect with us. We're more than glad to have conversations with you about it. We're going to close the panel and we're going to go briefly and impactfully through each of our panelists today. And I want you and want everyone in this panel to share what is that core value that allows you to make positive impact. And I'm gonna start with Cameron.
Being genuine is honestly at the forefront. I think it's so important. I didn't start 360 Eats to make money, or there wasn't any, self-gain that I wanted to get out of it. It was simply, I saw a need in the community. And so everything that I do and what our team does, and of something that I a value that I think is, I hold at the highest for other people too, is just being genuine, being open, honest, and, having empathy, and it's amazing, what you can accomplish by staying true to yourself and being genuine. So.
Thank you, Cameron. And underserved communities will know if you're not being genuine. All communities know, but underserved communities can tell if someone is not being real. So thank you for that. So I'll go then with Paul. What is that core value that allows you to stay put and making impactful changes in the community?
Yeah, I get it. For me, it's a sense of morality, right? And justice. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really this simple for me. Can I sleep at night? If what I did during the day, what decisions I've made, what actions I've taken, and candidly, being human, there's some days where no, I can't sleep at night because I yelled at my poor wife and I should not have, or I had a bad moment at work but overall, if you could, on most nights, sleep well knowing you did the right thing, I think that gets you a long way.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. Carlos, the core value that keeps you going?
I think Paul, Cameron, and Sandra all touched this core value in a way during this panel conversation, and that is that I strongly believe that we have been put on this earth to serve others versus being served. I think that when everybody at the table sits down and puts that core value at the front and says, hey, Do we all believe the same thing? Yes, I believe we have not been put on this earth to be served, but to serve others. Then I truly believe change can happen anyway.
Thank you, Carlos. And again, last but not least, Sandra, what is that core value that keeps you going?
Mine is similar to others. It's service and justice.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, this has been a great opportunity. I'll be listening to this recording and video to take my notes, because those are the ones that I look at every time I, make important or tiny decisions to make those small wins, small steps, make an impact in my personal life, in the people that I love, and in the communities that we serve. Thank you all for your leadership. You are more than welcome and invited to stay connected. You can close your video and stretch. And with that, I'll invite my co-chair for this planning committee, Yaridis.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you to all the first panelists who clearly showcase how everyone, no matter our title, role, or influence level, we are all an agent of change in our communities and workplaces. And I took obvious notes, Maria. Carlos mentioned Kaizen, small changes to big impact. Only way out is through. Be proud of who you are, of the role and the title you have in your organization. I never use the word I am just. When I walk in a room, I am a community engagement manager. I am Yaridis Garcia. Erase the just word in your vocabulary. And there's a question in the chat, Julian. I think you said, where do we start making those changes? Start with you. If you own where you are, if you have that inspiration, the community will follow. With that, Maria, I want you to share with the audience a amazing
News from Raymond
opportunity.
James? Yeah, news
Yes,
from Raymond James.
Raymond James.
So yes, with that, I wanted to share with the panel and with our attendees. Raymond James has an incredible opportunity right now to join their diversity, equity, and inclusion department. Again, we're changing hats here. So I am no Dee Darius, but I am super, super excited to share this opportunity with you. So with that, please, let's learn together more about that.
When I think of a career at Raymond James, I think impact,
Community.
leadership,
Opportunity.
Technology.
What drew me to Raymond James was really the culture. What I really wanted was a place that resonated with my core values, that lined up with my principles and beliefs, and I was really looking for a place that had a great culture.
It doesn't matter what level you are at. Well, you're going to have the opportunity to come in and have an impact in this company. It is an opportunity that only happens once in a lifetime, in my opinion.
Our coworkers are encouraging us to speak up. They're putting us at the table and they want us to have those conversations and be a part of the work that's being done.
The interesting experience that I've had here at Raymond James is seeing how all the different walks of life and experiences come together to solve for the client, building relationships.
Since I've been at Raymond James, I felt that I've had a great sense of independence to be able to really carve what my career is going to be.
Our culture, it really starts at the top. Paul Riley, our chairman and CEO, is committed to diversity, inclusion, hiring people who want to grow, add value to our organization, but also grow personally and professionally.
So we take a look at a person's background, and then from there we look at candidates who display strategic thinking, the ability to problem solve.
Just throw your name out there because you likely have skills that Raymond James is looking to benefit from because of the wide range of jobs and positions that we have here.
You have the ability to meet with so many different senior leaders that will support you in reaching your goals.
I love it when an associate sends me an email or calls me to say, would you be willing to have coffee with me? I'd love to learn more about the firm, love to know about your career journey, love to know how I can add more value to the company. I love those questions. All of my senior leader colleagues here at Raymond James feel the same way, that connecting with our associates is the way that helps us be a better company. Tom James has ingrained in this firm the importance of community involvement, community engagement. We all have opportunities to give back in a variety of ways.
Whether you're associated with United Way or participating in the Heart Walk, it is an opportunity to not only involve yourself, but involve your family too.
After my first year, I just dove right in and started volunteering and coordinating events for the HR department and making sure we had things on the books.
One of the ways to get involved is through our inclusion networks, to be able to help individuals understand the various cultures that exist here in Raymond James. There's an educational component to that.
As an associate, I sit on the Emerge leadership team, which is the firm's young professional network. Being a part of Emerge allowed me to meet so many different individuals and make this huge firm seem so much smaller than what it is.
I'm a veteran, so I try to attend a lot of the Valor Network events. At the Valor Network, we had the entire executive team there, and they took time out of their busy day to come hear a veteran, a combat veteran, speak about veterans issues and hiring. It really tells me that they take veterans seriously here, and they appreciate the veterans and the work that we're doing.
There is ample opportunity here at Raymond James to grow your career. We know candidates have choices. Here at Raymond James, with our unique culture, the ability to make an impact, our inclusive environment, Raymond James is the ideal choice to develop a career.
Thank you. And I would like to thank our diversity leader. Now it is time for have a little break. Come back at 10:30. 10:40. Get some water or stretch your legs. But come back punctually at 10:40 to be delighted by yet another amazing panel of community leaders who identify community needs, don't allow titles to be an obstacle to advocate, and bring forth impactful changes in their communities and organizations. See you soon. All right, welcome back. Now, I would like to invite Andrea Teres Mujia from Empath Health. She's the Community Partnership Specialist who has a very, very important announcement. Andrea?
Andrea is connecting.
Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Andrea Terrace. I'm with Empath Health, and I know we just got off a great panel that was talking about leadership from any seat. And with that, it's also important to make sure that our voices are heard. And I wanted to invite everyone to the Hispanic Judicial Forum that the Hispanic Leadership Council is putting together. It will be in person on August 15th, 6 p.m. at St. Pete College Clearwater campus. And I invite everyone to register and come out there and meet the candidates and hear what they have to say and how they are going to be supporting the Hispanic community.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Education and awareness are pivotal at this time. And also, they're so important at the time of making responsible decisions. And with that, are we ready for our second panel? Maria, what do you think?
We are. So we go from leading from any seat that requires change, that requires evolving, that requires, like Cameron said, if someone may said, that's not going to work. How do we now use that and turn it into fuel to understand better the challenges that we have ahead? How do we become a voice for ourselves, for our communities, for the person around us? So with that, I am super excited to bring you this next panel where we're going to talk about how we transform community needs into impactful change. So welcome, everybody. Welcome back. So we're going to keep things moving. And first, we would like to introduce Victor Sino. Victor is from New Jersey, and he's a Gen Xer. He has a high school education. However, with a high school education, it did not stop him from working for the Public Defender's Office for 18 years during the week. And he was also delivering meals for the kids on the weekends. And he helped him realize that he wanted to help people and the communities thrive. He's currently a coordinator with the Juvenile Welfare Board. And please welcome Victor. So Victor, if you can activate your camera. Here is a game changer, an impact maker. So thank you, Victor, for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. It's a privilege to be here. I'm Victor, and I'm married to my wonderful wife, Denise, and I have a 16-year-old son named Zildjian. I really enjoy playing the drums, and I'm so happy that football season has started. I work for the Juvenile Welfare Board. I've been there for about a year now as a facility stockroom coordinator. I really enjoy being part of helping children and families in the community. Thank you again for having me, guys.
Thank you, Victor, making impact from your seat and changing things for the better. Our second panelist is a distinguished cybersecurity operations manager specializing in government risk and compliance. She has her undergraduate degree in criminology and criminal justice and her graduate degree in information technology management. She also is the founder and CEO of the Tampa Bay Techies and was honored with the 2023 Emerging Tech Leaders of the Year by Tampa Bay Tech. So please welcome Samantha Ramos. We're using those R's today. Welcome, Samantha.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. So I'm the founder and CEO of Tampa Bay Techies, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And our mission is to close the opportunity gap in the Tampa Bay technology industry. So we do this by offering free and low-cost resources to our members, as well as hosting networking events that connect entry-level job seekers and students with C-level executives, as well as business leaders. And we really focus on the networking portion of business and professional development. And thank you so much for having me again.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The next person, I don't know this person, but we have one of our youngest rising star who recently graduated cum laude from the Florida Gulf Coast University with her focus on voice performance. If we're lucky, and I'm reading Darius' notes, by the way. If we're lucky, she might bless us with a performance today. And just to set the stage, she has completed and won second and first place in several competitions, including national competitions. Also, while attending Florida Gulf Coast University, she founded and became the president of the Coalition for Collegiate Musicians of Color. So please welcome Daniela Pepe. Daniela, if you open your camera.
Hi, everybody. My name is Daniela. I am apparently the daughter of Maria Pepe. And I just recently moved to Chicago to pursue my master's in voice performance. And in undergrad, I went to Florida Gulf Coast University in Fort Myers. And I noticed that there was a big gap between what the leadership around me, not only in the academic, but professional space looked like, and kind of the materials that we were being taught, and the largely Latino student basis. And in general, when I was speaking to other musicians of color at different institutions, how we felt a little disconnected from, I guess, what we thought the culture of classical music should be, as a space that was now being largely occupied by people of color, queer people, and women. And so, yeah, I wanted to create this organization to give people an opportunity to talk about the issues or the gaps in this community that we were seeing, and how to come together and reformat curriculums, performance practices, and the general culture around academic music spaces. So, yeah.
Thank you, Daniela. So, and our final panelist today is a former journalist with the New York Times Regional Media Group. Additionally, she has more than 2 decades of bilingual and multicultural communication experience in the private and public sectors, creating award-winning campaigns that empower audiences and build trust. She serves on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee of the Florida Public Relations Association, received her bachelor's from Universidad de Puerto Rico and her master's degree from University of Syracuse. She's currently the communications director for Pinellas County government, and please welcome Barbara Hernandez. So Barbara, if you can turn on your camera.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm really excited to be with all of you this morning. Yes, Puerto Rico. I have been in Florida for over 15 years, and I have, as Maria was mentioning, a background in journalism. And I now lead the emergency and day-to-day communications for Pinellas County government. So I had a lot of fun this past weekend on my activation for Tropical Storm Debbie. But the work we all do in our respective areas and organizations is very important. And I'm very happy to be joining you today and hopefully sharing some of the things that I have learned along the way and that helped me cross some bridges when it comes to increasing access for our diverse communities.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Barbara. And because I was snooping around social media, I know and I learned that you recently, I think this week, you just received an award.
Thank you. Yes. So I just had a proud mommy. I call myself like the mom of my team moment. We earned 6 awards at the Florida Public Relations Association. And what it does is it recognizes communications work that is strategic and that is research-based. And that's a lot of what I focus on in my communications work. We don't communicate because it feels right. We communicate because we know that the audience that we're trying to reach is more likely to receive this message and act on it. So I look forward to talking about that.
Yes. Thank you. So we're going to start full in now with our panel discussion. So Victor, we're going to start with you since you are minority in this group today. So we're going to start with you. So can you share an impactful change that you have been a part of? And what was the need in that community or workplace that you were trying to address?
Yeah, so when I worked for the Public Defender's Office for 18 years under Honorable Bob Dillinger as a file clerk, Mr. Dillinger saw a need in the community for children that didn't have any food to eat over the weekends. He would often children would go to school on Monday after not eating all weekend, and they would be hungry and tired. So that would cause, excuse me, that would cause them to have stomach pains, feel sick, and they couldn't focus during class. So to address the problem, Mr. Dillinger started the Nourish to Flourish program. I would go to GA Foods and I would pick up over 100 boxes with 6 meals per box, and I would deliver to 12 schools weekly. Each child would have enough food for the whole weekend to help them get the nutrition they needed to thrive. It was so rewarding to see the smiles on their faces when they saw me arrive to drop the meals off. They would call me the snack guy, which I thought was really cute. Being part of this program made me realize that I loved helping families and children get the resources they need to stay healthy and thrive in their community. I'm so proud to be part of giving back to the community with my current position here at the Juvenile Welfare Board.
And all we hear is about how you are taking everything and see what are the unnecessary steps that we may have to analyze and remove and make streamlined processes and making the work environment so much easier and lighter for so many. So again, you're leading from your seat, Victor, and we're so happy that we have you in this panel today.
Yes, thank you.
And Barbara, I'm going next with you. So tell me about an impactful change that you have been a part of, and what was that need in your workplace or in your community that you were trying to address?
I'll be happy to share. One of my earliest experiences when I got to Pinellas County was researching our community and meeting with a lot of people. I was excited to see folks like Christy, like Sandra, like you, Maria, Jaridis, Paul. When I first got here 8 years ago, the first thing I set out to do was understand the community. What does it look like? Who are the people who live in Pinellas and work in Pinellas? And I very quickly, in my new role as Director of Communications for Pinellas County Government, learned that there was a significant segment of our population that we weren't really communicating with at all in some cases. And so the big first change that I made was hire for a community outreach coordinator position in my department. I had to repurpose a position because obviously in government, it's very difficult to get new positions added. So I repurposed that position and I went to my leadership at the county and I said, this is important. We need to prioritize it. We need to staff it. And I figured out a way to fund it out of my own budget. So I'm not asking you for more money. And that was very quickly approved. And very fortunately, we had the foresight in our leadership to understand that that was needed. That role is occupied by someone who I feel some of you might know. Her name is Arelis Escalera, and she does a wonderful job of engaging not just our Spanish-speaking neighbors, but there's a lot of outreach we do with our Vietnamese community, our blind, our deaf and hard of hearing. And we are expanding to now do more outreach with our Eastern European, French, and Greek communities. So that was the big organizational change that I was able to accomplish early on, and that we have been able to staff. It has been critical. It was critical in COVID-19. Thanks to those partnerships, thanks to that outreach, also including our African American community, we were able to set up, back in COVID, you remember the mass distributions at one point, we were able to set up and staff 12 distribution sites throughout the county in less than 24 hours because we had those community contacts, because we developed them, and because and this is something that the previous panelists were speaking to, We prioritize relationships, and relationships cannot be transactional. If you're in the business of increasing diversity in your organization, please always make sure that it is not transactional, because authenticity, we can read through it very quickly. And if it's not coming from an authentic place, it's just not going to be as successful. And to really do diversity well, I know budgets are very tight and I know it's very difficult, but you have to staff it, because in a lot of our organizations, it's not a second nature. We're working toward it. We're getting there increasingly, but there always has to be that voice in the room that presents a different perspective. And if you don't staff it, everybody just kind of defaults to the natural, what's easy, what we're used to doing. And often that means not including diverse communities in the conversation.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Now, if you had not been inspired by now, I hope right now you feel like you can flex your muscle and take on the work. And I just want to share the shout out to Arelis Escalera. I know Pinellas County, with Arelis, your department support, Barbara, and our wonderful emergency management have been out there providing information to many communities. And I remember a couple of years ago or last year when a storm was coming, boots on the ground, knocking doors at some of our mobile home parks with the fear that people didn't want to evacuate. And you know, nothing was going to stop your department and emergency management to make sure that our communities were safe. So thank you to you and your team. And so I'm moving to Daniela. So tell me about an impactful change that you have been a part of, and what was that community need that you wanted to address?
So yeah, when the organization first got together in 2021, it was as a result of a conversation that I had had with my friend Carlos Walker, who was also a previous panelist, and he's now starting his first semester as a graduate student at Juilliard. So we're all very proud of Carlos. And we were having a conversation because he's a Black classical musician and I'm a Latina classical musician, about how isolating that experience was in some way, and how specifically a lot of the literature that we were performing and that we had grown up performing in music did not come from people that looked like us. And so this was another, like that same topic came up when we expanded the conversation to a large group of people when the organization first started. And so to address this issue, we took on kind of a unique format for a registered student organization, which was, instead of the board, the officers presenting at every meeting, we set up a schedule so that our members were actually leading the individual meetings. And there was one meeting in particular where we had a discussion on how to select diverse repertoire from diverse composers, not only for yourself, but for your classroom, as many of our members were going to be future music educators, and we're in the music education department. So we were able to come together and discuss that, one, our school was doing a pretty good job at that point of selecting diverse repertoire, specifically within the choral music realm, as our director, Dr. Trent Brown, selected a lot of repertoire by Latino composers, Black composers, and women composers, specifically with his soprano alto choirs, where he selects exclusively women composers for their repertoire to be sung. And a lot of the music educators and individual musicians left with so many more resources than we had previously. A lot of catalogs online where people were already doing the work for us and saying, like, hey, put a filter. Who do you want to find compositions by? Do you want to find compositions by queer composers, women composers, East Asian composers? And there was so much literature to be found, which was super exciting, because I think after a while, when you're only shown music by European men, you can sometimes think like, maybe like the repertoire just isn't there by women composers or any of those communities. But to see that a lot of people had already done the sort of musicology, music historian work of putting together all of these resources for us to just access was super exciting. And I think all of us left with like this whole new world to explore of diversity within composition, not only for ourselves, but for our future students.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Daniela. And again, impact and change can happen in any field. So again, that's why we get excited after we see our post-conference survey to see all the fields and work industries and work student bodies that have joined the conference, because again, leadership happens in all the fields. So thank you for that. I've learned a lot. So with that, I want to move to Samantha. Again, tell me an impactful change that you have been a part of, and what was that community or workplace need that you were trying to address?
Sure. So, like backing up a little bit, last April of 2023, that's when Tampa Bay Techies started. I initially just started a study group for me and a couple of friends because we were studying for some cybersecurity certifications. And we ended up opening up to the whole community, and we got about 15 participants throughout the day. And we did some studying, but we did a lot of talking about, the needs of the community, of the tech community in specific, and some of the barriers that the participants were facing in trying to find a job, trying to find training resources or education, whether it was time or, travel or money, financial issues. Everyone was kind of, going through something that was keeping them from really fulfilling their passion to get into the tech field. So we started hosting some networking events and social events just to get the community connected. And we realized that a lot of the community really wanted interpersonal relationships with other people in the community. They wanted mentors, they wanted resources that they could go to when they needed something that had to do either personally or professionally. They wanted people that understood them. So we started partnering with our free and low cost training resources, as well as our education partners. We're partners with a few of the colleges and universities here in the Tampa Bay area. And we're also partnered with a few tech companies that have generously allowed us to host events there as well. And through that, we've now gone up to over 900 members. We just hit on Meetup, and we're hosting monthly events. Now we have a monthly study group. We're going to start doing monthly social networking events. And we do bigger events throughout the year as well. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, which was really exciting as well. But with this adventure, I like to call it, we really created this space, this safe space for everyone that's in tech, that they can come and they can be understood and acknowledged, and that we can help them move forward in their career. I recently just started working with and mentoring international students as well, which has been has opened my eyes a lot to international differences and international challenges that people have been facing when they come here. I went to the University of Tampa, and they have a really big international student program there. And I also am my parents are immigrants from the Philippines. So, I grew up with very cultural household, and I knew that it can be very different and intimidating coming here as well. So that was something that I really wanted to focus on too. So just making a really safe space for people in tech has been the main part of my journey here.
Thank you, Samantha. And I know through our dear Jillian Fowler, a planning committee member and leader in our community, you're probably being very humble about all the impact that you're making in our communities. So thank you. So I'm going to move to Victor. So Victor, we're having these conversations where, one key background about the conference. If you notice, we move from keynote, panel, closer, and these individual points of view. We felt that this year we are stronger together. Remember what we learned from Carlos Caballero, and having panel discussions in a way that we can learn from everyone. So That's why the format, for those that have attended previous years, this format looks a little bit different. And that was very intentional this year. So with the topic today, Victor, for this panel, which is from community needs to impactful change, tell me, in your opinion, how a panel like this one impacts an individual, a group, or people in any community or workplace?
Yeah, so I feel there's so many people helping children and families in need, giving them the tools they need that instills hope. It's rewarding not only for the individual, but for the organization to see how grateful the families are to get the assistance they need to relieve them from their struggles. We all need assistance at some point. It feels good to help, and it's the right thing to do. In the end, as Mr. Dillinger often said, we are the hope.
We are the hope. One more for my notes. Yaridis, I hope you're taking those notes. We are the hope. Thank you for that, Victor. And again, this togetherness in this discussion is inspiring one another and supporting one another. So I'm moving to Samantha. So why will an individual, group, or company need to engage with identifying community needs and being a part of the change?
So especially in the tech space where, tech is evolving so fast and it's impacting us everywhere, whether we're at home or at work. And a lot of times tech companies are looking for that top tier talent, and they're pointing out what's called the skills gap, which is, they're looking for A, B, and C for a job position, but they have too many potential candidates that don't have A, B, and C. But what's not being addressed is what's needed to get to those A, B, and C skills. So whether that's the training, the resources, books, mentorship, people, is where I think that communities and groups like us really come into play, where we really advocate for a lot of those soft skills as well. In the tech field too, it's a lot of hands-on work. You're on a computer all day, but there are a lot of job roles and a lot of instances and situations that you're going to be, customer facing or people facing, or just face to face with anyone else that you might be working with. So it's super important to be able to have those soft skills of speaking and even like writing and time management, anything like that. So that's also something that I think companies need to focus on as well. And especially with the diversity, that we've been seeing here, especially in the Tampa Bay area, as the tech ecosystem, as well as the business ecosystem, has just been growing just exponentially. We've seen a lot of younger community leaders too. So not only, like myself, but there's so many other groups very similar to mine that focus on different parts of tech, or they focus on different parts of business or entrepreneurship or different soft skills or even tech skills. And I think that that's super important that companies, encourage their employees to go to these events, to learn things outside of work, but to learn things that they're passionate about, that they can bring to the workplace as well.
Thank you. And again, we're going to be sharing contact information because there are some things that you mentioned there, Samantha, that I really would like to further this conversation and learn more about how, after identifying those needs of the skill gaps, how someone can move to the next step and make changes. So thank you so much. So I'm moving to Daniela. So you have used your voice. You started this coalition. Now talk to us about what could be the long-term consequences if we choose not to be an agent of change, if we choose just to stay silent within our communities and workplaces.
I think sometimes it's easy to fall into the trap that someone will get to it eventually. If you don't, somebody will take care of it. And that's kind of a chain reaction, I think, at some point where complacency is a lot easier than we think it is sometimes, and we're all capable of it. As unfortunate as that is, it's just how it is. It's human nature. We're all capable of stagnancy sometimes. And so I think sometimes when we see community issues and we're like, well, I don't know what to do about it, hopefully somebody else will figure it out. It just can go unaddressed. And I felt with this specifically that if I didn't do something at my smaller scale, that it wasn't going to be addressed at all, because I feel as though a lot of other art forms have, as far as diversity, equity, and inclusion practices, have gone a lot further than classical music has. Classical music and jazz music are both an art form really centered on history and cultural pride in that sort of way. So I feel like there's always been a resistance for progress, as seeing it as somehow tainting the kind of art form that we're honoring in its historical context. So, for example, like a lot of orchestras still even have issues with diversity, equity, and inclusion with hiring and stuff. And accessibility is a large part of this. Like, a lot of women aren't encouraged to go into certain instruments and spaces. And we see it a lot with conductors. Like, pretty much all of the most notable orchestras and choirs and opera houses in the world are conducted by white men. Like, it's very rare that you find a major opera house or a major orchestra that is conducted by a woman, let alone a woman of color. So I found that if this wasn't going to be taken care of on a smaller level, then this progress would be slowed down even further. And thankfully, there's a lot of other diversity, equity, and inclusion organizations that are popping up within academic spaces for musicians and professional spaces for musicians, specifically on social media. Women in opera and Black women in opera and Latina women in opera are all very popular accounts on there that give a platform to women of color and their space in the opera field. And we find that now there's a lot more push for diversity in repertoire selection or performance selections for major opera houses. Just a few years ago, and to give you context on, how slow moving progress is in the classical music space, just a few years ago, for the first time ever in the history of the opera house, the Metropolitan Opera had their premiere of their first opera by a Black composer. And I believe that was in 2021. So, it's been a long time coming, but I feel that there's a new generation of musicians who are seeing the gaps in kind of the workspace culture and the academic culture and are coming together to kind of bridge those gaps. Because we want progress to kind of move a little bit faster than it has for generations of musicians before us. So yeah, I mean, I think the best way to see, where the pitfalls are of these issues going unaddressed is just kind of the history of this art form. And when people did, when nobody stood up for these musicians that needed a voice, and how slow the progress has been in addressing those issues. So I'm really inspired to see so many other musicians and leaders in the musical space coming together to kind of address this.
Hi, this is Deshawn. I'm answering a phone call.
Thank you so much, Daniela. And, this reminds me, and I think Yaridis put it on the chat, our dear Sally Parks. She was a fellow board member at 211, former county commissioner. Her motto was, if it's not me, then who? If it's not now, then when? And I know I'm probably not doing justice, repeating exactly the way she will say it, but again, there are major dangers to staying silent and not doing anything and just expecting that someone else will pick up. So thank you so much. And I'm moving to Victor with the same question. What are the long-term consequences of just sitting back and expecting someone else to do it?
I feel like just not being there for the families in our communities can cause many health concerns, crime, mental illness, and even death. just helping someone out in need really goes a long way. Investing in our children and families helps protect all of our futures.
Victor, I'm getting to know you better. In a very few words, it is so impactful because you just explain a long chain reaction that can happen if we just don't move forward a little bit. Because in that point, you know, we can affect someone's life just by not doing anything about it. So again, the small wins, the small steps, this is how we lead. We are going to look at questions from the audience. And I know Juliana Day put out a question for the previous panel, but I think this panel right now is more than capable to go through her question right now. So I'm actually gonna ask Barbara. Juliana asked to the previous panelist, where do we start moving our community through this process? Where do we start?
Thank you. I will answer that question based on my own personal experience. When I was studying journalism, I was in Syracuse University, coming from Puerto Rico, where every day was sunny. I went to a place of gray skies, and it was probably the most difficult experience of my life, just spending a year in a place where I was a complete stranger and learning to become a journalist in a language that was not my native language. Culturally, I was maybe 10 years behind all of my colleagues. So when I thought, you know, at the time, I'm going to date myself, when I thought Madonna was still in, they were like, what are you talking about? She's so like 20 years ago. So it was a big cultural shock. It was a shock of every kind. And I remember my first assignments, I would go to do my interviews for my articles, and people would shut the door. They would say they're available, then they're not. I encountered the most challenging time trying to learn how to be a journalist. And it was a lot of doors closing in my face. I thought of quitting. I thought I was not adequate. I thought I was not enough. One day I'm in the communications lounge in school, and this girl who was my classmate, she never spoke. And when she did, she was always very direct in class. So I was a little intimidated by her. And I was there and I was just telling someone how I couldn't get my interviews and I can't do my article. I'm going to get an F in class, whatever, all frustrated. And she walked up to me with her same assertive presence. And she said, well, they have a job to do, and so do you. And that was all she told me. And then she walked away. Those words 20 years later are still sticking with me. When I feel inadequate, when I feel that I'm not making enough change, when I feel that things are too slow, I remind myself, everybody who is not helping me change things has their job to do, or they think they have to do. What is my role in that? What is my job in that? And it truly starts with ourselves. And there's a word that you'll see books out there that's called mindfulness. And I'm in the communications world and I love it because I call it the most humbling job in the world. It's never about what I think, it's about what my audience wants. So my ideas are often not what someone else is looking for because their experience is different. So what I would say to your question is, first and foremost, practice mindfulness. You know, what are you doing or what could you do to change something in your world? It always starts very small. And if you look at all of this social communication, social relationship research, and psychology research, it's amazing. The brain does not want to change. The brain does not want to accept transitions because the brain, just biologically speaking, wants to conserve energy. So we are inserting an emotional, rational appeal into a biological set of wires that we're just wired that way. So think about that. If your brain itself doesn't want to change, why would someone who's outside of your control want to change? So what are the habits that you can make that will start signaling to maybe coworkers, to colleagues, to family members that, you know, transitions need to happen? And so in my case, I deal with I deal in a very difficult environment. Just being in the political world and not being a political person is very challenging. People want you to take sides. You know, sometimes ideas are thrown your way where you go, oh, that's not good. I have made my focus my staff, because my staff is the one that goes out and does the education and the outreach to the communities, and I mentioned them earlier, all of these diverse communities. If I don't take care of them, they won't be able to take care of our community. So I made that my priority number one. So what is that priority number one that you can make for yourself to influence people maybe who are helping you? So it's not always just us, right? And I'm very excited to say that in 5 years, I've had 0 turnover in my department because I prioritize relationships. I make sure that when I show up to work, I show up early, and often people want to tell me about their day or a situation they're dealing with at home. And so listen to the people who are surrounding you, show them you care, and those people will help you make change more effectively in your community.
With that, I am marking also as answered live during this webinar, how do you navigate a big organization and make impact? Because I think you really pointed out very, very doable steps that we can take if we just have that moment of being mindful and present and making sure that we stick to our core values and what's important to us. So with that, there is a question from Sandra Romero, and I'm gonna go to that question in a minute. And I think another question from Juliana Day, you're talking about, you are in the Tarpon Springs community and you want to build a more resilient community. I believe that some of the tips that we have heard today, stick to your core value, be mindful, understand what's important, provide that level of priority to relationships. I think that also can be impactful in order to make an change in a broader spectrum. So thank you, Juliana, for that. And maybe we'll close later with a question from Sandra. So with that, I would like to go over global societal shifts. So for that, I would like to ask Samantha, so how do you see these global shifts influencing the future of our communities?
Yeah, and in Tampa especially, we have one of the most flourishing innovation and tech hubs that I have seen in the nation, honestly. And I'm from New Jersey, so in New York, it's a lot of very big corporate work and offices and buildings. And I did intern there at one point. And as much as I loved it, it was a very different community. So when I came down here, the first thing that I really wanted to do was find that community for myself. And with Tampa Bay Techies, I've really built that community for myself as well, and for a lot of other people. And so what is really inspiring to me is that it's not just myself that's building these communities, it's a lot of other people that have stepped up and become leaders as well. And that in itself has just been a really big societal shift. And, people almost demanding to be heard and bringing their voices to the table and saying, this is an issue right now, and here's what I'm going to do about it. And in Tampa, we just have so many, like I said before, resources and platforms for people to speak up and for people to, show what skills that they have and to really put on make themselves look really good and make themselves look really knowledgeable for these jobs that they're applying for. And because of that, I really think that it's built this community of support, and it's really built this community of help of where to go next. When I talk to a lot of people, they are sometimes kind of confused on where to go as far as the next step in their tech journey, because ultimately they want to be this high level C-level executive in a company, but they don't know how to start or something like that. So it's really taking those, teaching them how to come to the next steps and the path that they want to take. I think what's also been a really big shift for us has been the world of remote work after COVID. We're now learning that like employees can really work from anywhere as long as they get their job done. Especially if you work at like a company that has a lot of international employees or national employees, you're often working at different times. But that opens a lot of doors up for yourself and for different companies as well. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is that the shifts to more like just tech advancements and just new innovations in the tech scene is that there's so many new opportunities and there's so many new types of jobs. There's over 50 now cybersecurity jobs, like job titles. Like I said, when I went to UT, I minored in cybersecurity, and I think we had like one cybersecurity lab there, and now there's a bunch, and they have a couple of different tech classes and IT classes and stuff like that. And I'm seeing that in so many different universities and schools. And we've even seen it in the younger generation. So we've recently partnered with a high school that we're starting to build out a group there and helping mentor some of the students when they come out. I've also been a counselor at like a STEM youth camp for like 6-year-olds, and it's really cool to see bringing in STEM and science and all of that stuff into the younger generation has been really inspirational as well.
Thank you, Samantha. Again, changes life. If we're not changing, what's happening then. So I'm going to close this amazing panel with a question for each and every one of you. And you will see for the attendees, this is going to increase even more your interest to connect, to stay connected for the third panel, because this is part of boundaries. This is part of mental health on how we take care of ourselves. So with that, this is gonna be my question, and I'm gonna start with Victor, okay? So how do you recommend that we prepare for the demands and the skill sets that we're gonna need in order to stay active, being agents of change? What advice will you give to those that are interested on staying active in the community, making a positive impact?
I would just say, just do it. Reach out to organizations around your area and ask if they have a volunteer program you could be a part of. JWB has volunteers come in and help us with projects that we must get ready for our monthly baby bags that go to the hospitals, or even our Turbo Baby initiative that we have. Many organizations are looking for volunteers to help them with various projects, or just helping a homeless person out by giving them the essentials they need to survive. My wife and I, we would fill up an old suitcase with clothes, shoes, food, water, first aid kits, or even cash to get them by with. If it even makes an impact on them to be comfortable for just a little while. It's a feel-good feeling for both the giver and the receiver. Or just donating to an organization as a way to help people in the communities. I would just say, sorry, I come from a large family that needed assistance when I was young, and we had the resources there to help us get by, and that's why I just say, just do it.
Just do it. We're stronger together. I think we're listening to a theme here. Community collaboration, staying connected. And if you don't know where to start, then connect with an organization that is recruiting volunteers and, go through those few hours of trainings or longer and, begin your journey. Samantha, same questions. How does someone prepare to be an agent of change? How do we stay in these motivated in this space?
I think something that's really important to me that has honestly motivated me to really stay in this space has been a level of compassion that I always keep always for others, but always for myself too. I've really, learned what I'm capable of and really trusting myself as well as trusting others. Every time that I talk to someone, I always put myself in their shoes, and that's always the best way that I'm able to help them through whatever that they're going through. And compassion is my main core value. I say it all the time. And I really think that with compassion and empathy and courage, and I gave a really long speech on this a couple of weeks ago. It's on my LinkedIn if anyone wants to watch it. But I got super emotional. But I really do think that with empathy and compassion and courage, that change it can happen, and it can happen big.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you so much. Again, we have enough for a theme for next year. So if you want to be part of this conversation, Daniela, what would be your advice to someone that wants to start or want to stay motivated being an agent of change?
I think a lot of the really important things have been brought up. There's always room for you. Like, no organization is going to be like, actually, I don't think we need help right now. It's very rare that you'll come across those instances. There's always room for help in whatever capacity you can provide it. And I would also like to say something that is a kind of a personal pitfall of mine that I actually faced with the coalition is clear is kind is something that my mom always says. And I think being honest with yourself about how much you can give. This was something that I faced with the coalition. In my second year, I was still the president. And that was also my junior year of college, which, for, anybody who's been in an academic space knows that your junior year at any institution, your like penultimate year is the worst year because you're preparing for whatever the next step is, whether that be finishing up courses for graduation or moving on to grad school. And so I had to face the fact that like towards the end of that year that I wasn't doing as much for the organization as I had been the year previous. And I wasn't doing my officers justice for all of the work that they were doing for the organization. And, in conversation with them, I decided, next year, I think it's best if one of the younger officers who's going to be here for longer and who still has a little bit more time on their plate takes over and does this job better than I can at this point. And I think even though it was like a humbling experience, it was better for the organization as a whole to realize, I don't really have any room on my plate for this anymore. And even though like this organization is my baby and I love it so much and I wish I could stay here and do, kind of contribute as much as I had been contributing in the past, it was only going to, one, deteriorate my sanity and mental health, trying to balance everything, knowing that I didn't have, much to give at that point, and two, probably cost the organization, certain benefits as far as like a leader that had the time to be present, not only for the officers, but the organization itself and the members. So I would say, just be honest with yourself about what you have to give. It's okay if you can't be, it's okay if you can't necessarily be the catalyst in the sense of, the one organizing everything and finding funding. But there's always a place for whatever capacity of help you're willing to provide. And even if you do kind of have that idea of like, I see these sort of gaps, there is nothing to be lost in approaching somebody else and saying like, hey, I know you've been a community leader before. I know you're interested in this sort of community leadership. Here's an idea I had. I'd love to talk about it with you more soon. I don't know if something that I have time for or, the energy for, but I really think this is something our community needs and you might be the right fit for it. So even just providing that little bit of inspiration at the beginning is still doing way more than just kind of, watching community issues unfold without saying anything at all. So being honest with yourself about your limitations and then going forth kind of with that knowledge and with the knowledge of like where you want to go from there.
Thank you, Daniela. And again, for those who have seen the movie Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, I think we kind of feel it. So Barbara, close this wonderful panel discussion with that. How do we prepare to stay put, being agents of change? And what will be that advice that you give to someone that wants to be an agent of change?
So I have thoughts for like the self, the individual, and then for if those of you who are listening, if you have teams. I'll start with the teams because that one is faster. If you have a team, if you have a colleague, if you have a friend, the best thing you can do is connect them to resources that will increase their knowledge. Become a chameleon. So you might be great at finance, you might be great at accounting. Please, please, please diversify your skills. Find opportunities to interact with people who are from different industries. Sign up for a webinar for another industry. Make sure that you provide those opportunities to your people. I do recruitment and I sit on panels for my organization. And I will tell you, one of the most desired traits is somebody who is a chameleon, who is able to navigate from their area of technical expertise into other realms and maintain that professionalism and that composure. Now, when it comes to ourselves, because everything starts with ourselves, I will say a couple of things. The greatest entitled thought that we can all have is that we have tomorrow. And I know we all have heard this before, but I have two very personal experiences. In 2020, I lost a friend, not to COVID, but to a speeding driver on I-4. She was 37. She and her fiance were gone in an instant. 2 months later, my husband lost a 30-year-old friend who was done with law school, and he was studying for his final exam. A storm came through Atlanta, and a tree landed right on top of his house, and he perished. And so we have had very close calls and examples. So for everyone who's listening, I want to repeat that. The most entitled thought that we can have is that there's a tomorrow. And I know that sounds doomsday. It's not. It means that none of us are in control of the minutes that we have to make change. And so if you have a minute today, I'm not going to ask you to call someone you love and tell them you love them. You should already be doing it. I'm going to ask you to look at yourself in the mirror and recognize that you are enough, that you have a place and a space. There are more than 3 trillion cells in the human body, so each one of us. There is no way that nature thought that you were a waste and put that many cells into your body. And you can look this up, it's biology. So if you ever doubt yourself, just look at the biology. Science is amazing. So there is no waste in the person you are. So make sure that you find one thing that gives you that energy to be able to give to others. If you are in toxic environments, try to separate yourself from them, and that includes family, and that is very difficult. And maybe it starts with a relative that you have that's very toxic. Maybe that phone call doesn't need to be 10 minutes today. It could be 8 minutes. So it's little changes that you implement to create a space for yourself to actually breathe and to think about what your goals are. And hopefully by taking advantage of what you have right now, you can build a better future for the people around you.
Thank you, Barbara.
I don't know what to say after this, Maria.
I have
No
scripts
words.
here. Again, thank you so much. You are enough. And that's for all of us. Thank you, Barbara. What a beautiful closing to this wonderful panel. That's it. I accept and acknowledge my emotions after that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I have to pick it up and try to compose myself. But if this panel has not been inspiring for everyone, I don't know what's going to be inspiring. Thank you so much for everything, all your comments. And it is our hope that by listening to our panelists, we have learned different ways in which we can create safe spaces to unleash new ideas and to nurture new talents and emerging leaders within an organization and communities, allowing them to take ownership of the vision and display their own leadership abilities. Thank you so much for taking us through your leadership journey. And Maria, I don't have words to say. Thank you for stepping up being the leader that we know you are, and for moderating this uplifting and inclusive conversation.
Thank you, Yaridis. And again, thank you so much, panelists. You're more than welcome to stay connected. We'll see you soon, and we'll be connecting with you soon. Attendees, stay tuned, because this is not over. More impactful conversations are coming this way. Thank you.
Yes. Now, it is a pleasure for me to talk about one of the my most endearing sessions of this conference. One of the key values of the Intercultural Advocacy Institute is to support high school students with their education, especially in obtaining post-secondary education. Each year, we award a scholarship to students who will not otherwise qualify for student aid. On behalf of the Diversity Conference Committee, this morning, we are thrilled to present 2 scholarships in the amount of, our recipients didn't know, but we are awarding $1,000 to each of these recipients. 2 of them are outstanding students and emerging community leaders. Jill, can you please introduce the recipients of this year's scholarship? As Victor said, we are the hope. They are the hope. Welcome, Jillian.
Thank you so much, Yaya. And thank you everyone for attending the conference today. My name is Jillian Fowler, and I'm an Enrollment Solutions Manager with Year Up, a national nonprofit organization that provides free career development programs for young adults. I have the honor of announcing the recipients of the 2024 Embracing Our Changing Community Scholarship. This scholarship is funded by our wonderful sponsors and is awarded to Tampa Bay High School students who embody the values of our annual conference. They are young people who work towards creating an inclusive community that welcomes and values its members. As Yaya said, we have 2 very deserving scholarship recipients this year. Our first recipient is Demaya Broughton, who serves on the Juvenile Welfare Board's Youth Leadership Committee and works to provide feedback from youth on community initiatives. Ever since she was young, Demaya was captivated by crime shows like NCIS, Law and Order, and Criminal Minds, and these TV series fueled her dream of pursuing a career in forensic science. To make that dream a reality, Demaya will be attending Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University, Florida A&M, where she can further explore her field of interest. And I do believe that we have a photo of Demaya. We can show that. Demaya, congratulations. Our next recipient, our second recipient, is Alexa Benuelo Acosta, an active member of the Youth Leaders Partnership Program at the Hispanic Outreach Center, where she helps her community through food distribution efforts. Alexa is committed to volunteering with the Hispanic Outreach Center and to pursuing her educational goals. She aspires to first earn her associate's degree from St. Petersburg College, her bachelor's degree from the University of South Florida, and finally, a master's degree in occupational therapy with a specialization in pediatrics. Thank you both for your impactful and meaningful contributions to our community, and congratulations on your academic achievements. We wish you the best with all of your future endeavors. And back to you, Yaya.
Thank you, Jill. Thank you. Thank you so much. And congratulations, Demaya and Alexa. You are both an example of our emerging leaders who feel they belong, moving from pointing at the problem to a solution-focused approach. Keep using your words to advocate for more leadership opportunities for our younger generation. Now we will take a 5-minute break, come back to hear from our last panelist, who will talk to you about the importance of self-care while leading. I think we're ready to come back and introduce our last panelist for the day. I would like to ask Tamara to join me. And I will just read a little bit about Tamara's bio, as she will be moderating our last panelist, Self-Care in Leadership. Tamara is a Cuban native. She moved to the United States at the age of 15. She quickly learned English and earned a full scholarship to Boston University as the valedictorian of her class. At Boston University, she pursued social work and has dedicated 30 years to the field, working in various mental health settings. She also holds an MBA degree that positioned her well to start her own business. In 2021, she founded Clear Path Health, providing outpatient mental health services across 4 Florida locations. Passionate about serving underserved minority communities, Tamara aims to make Clear Path Health the leading mental health agency in Florida by delivering quality care and training clinicians in the latest treatments. Bienvenida, Tamara.
Thank you, Yaya. It is a privilege and an honor to have been asked to join the conference and be a moderator, especially for this last panel. This is one of the things that I'm very passionate about. We as leaders sometimes forget to take care of ourselves, and that is very important. So I'm super proud to have the floor with these 3 amazing emerging leaders that we will introduce to have a conversation about how do we take care of ourselves as leaders and what impact can we have in our self-care. So first, let me introduce Kirsty Padilla, who's a Puerto Rican leader who's very passionate advocating for the Latino community. She serves on the board of La Red por los Derechos de la Niñez y Juventud, where she provides crucial support to children and family. She has risen to the ranks at the Hispanic Outreach Center, where she has empowered at-risk youth and has continually expanded in her education to play a bigger part in her advocacy for Latinos. Welcome, Christy. Are you there?
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. As I mentioned, Christy Padilla. I'm working for human resources at a company called Healthy Systems, and I also have a business, Worksite Wellness, that supports and develops companies and organizations to develop wellness strategies for their employees. But most importantly, I'm very honored to be here today because, as you mentioned, I have worked for the Hispanic Outreach Center before. And it has been an honor to not only be able to be in a seat of leadership with an amazing group of women at the HOC and students who are leading now at the HOC, but definitely great and inspiring to be able to participate in conversations like today. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Christy. Next, we're going to introduce Viridiana Lopez Lugo, affectionately known as Vidi. She's a first-generation Latina from Clearwater. She has also been passionate about investing in her education to better advocate and serve the Latino population. She went into the field of education, policy, and research because she saw the underrepresentation of Latino in higher education and the challenges they encounter to access higher education. She's also passionate about the diabetes rate increasing in our population. She hopes to leverage her degree in education to develop community-based solutions and leverage local assets. Welcome, Vidi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. As Tamara just said, my name is Viridiana Lopez Lugo, but I like to go by Vidi. I am a recent graduate from Georgetown University, and I'm currently coming back to my community to try to impact and make an impact in my community and help out over in our community. I am super excited to be here. I'm so honored. I have been a panelist before back in, I think, 2016. So I'm loving to see all of these familiar faces. And it is just so great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but certainly not least, separately not least is Deshawn Mims. She's a St. Pete native who oversees the Hidden Voices Project, which targets neighborhood vulnerable to gun violence and trauma. She's also the local secretary for the NAACP, where she engages in various initiatives to advance civil rights and social justice. Deshawn's dedication to her community is evidence in all she does. Welcome, Deshawn, are you there?
I am. Good morning, everybody. I am so grateful to be here on the panel. I've been listening all morning and honestly taking in so much of the information that everybody shared. As Ms. Tamara mentioned, I am the case manager and I oversee a program specific to gun violence in Pinellas County, really making sure that we can provide those mental health resources, wraparound services, whatever that we can provide to those individuals, whether they're coming back home from being released from jail with those charges or just having lost a loved one. But I am very excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's jump right in. Our first question is, as leaders, we tend to pour into others to empower and uplift them. How are you refueling, or who is pouring into you to keep you empowered and uplifted to continue leading with your community or workplace? Let's start with Kirsty.
Hi, thank you. I believe that what keeps me on track with what I want to do in my mission, especially working and coming from a background of social services, is to be and continue to be an agent of change. I believe that when you're connected to the mission, and you are connected with the goals of that mission, is when you continue to develop the strategies to continue doing the work. And I have to say that in my background, especially working at the HOC, coming along with so many clients and participants who were coming for resources, such as in need of health services, food, sometimes they were coming crisis. What keeps us and what keeps all of the leaders in I guess, this conversation, it's the mission that it continues to stay connected with us, to continue making the change and continue feeling empowered. I have to say that in my experiences, I do not call a job, an everyday job. I think that when you're connected, when you truly feel that you want to wake up and you want to make the change every day, and you have the resources and you have the self-care tips that we're going to be discussing today, I think that is enough to be a leader, but also to continue supporting and continue around amazing people and amazing community leaders that are going to fulfill us. And I think, again, the becoming an agent of change have to come through a lot of resources, and who we have that. And I know we're going to start talking about that in a little bit, but definitely for me is how well am I continue to be connected with the mission and the passion that it's becoming an agent of change. In what community, what different scenarios, those might change, right? Depending on where we feel that we want to give back to our community.
Absolutely, I agree. I think, we all have the commitment and the desire to really help our community. So it's very important that we all are involved. So I want to ask the same question to Deshawn, because I think she does a lot of community work, and I wanted to hear from her, who pours into you, who really keeps you empowered to continue to do the work that you do.
So I'm going to be quite honest. I mean, the people that pour into me are the people that I work with every single day. And those are the care people that I have to either refer my clients to, or mental health services, or just people who are offering these services in general. When I'm meeting people, just stopping to say, how are you? We all have so many things kind of going on. So those same people who are kind of providing those services, they definitely pour back into me as well. And then obviously I have a wonderful, fantastic family that I lean on very heavily. I am very codependent on my family, to make sure that when I am going through those things that, they're there for me as I am for them. And then I have a dog, I have other friends, and just so many other things that, I have to just make sure that when I have those moments and I do need to kind of step away, then I'm being supported, but also making sure that I support my team who supported me.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with that. Next, I'm going to ask Biddy. I'm going to start with Biddy. How can we advance our community and workplace well-being and address its more pressing needs?
Yes, thank you for that question. I think we can advance our community and workplace well-being by taking care of each other and pushing each other to be our best selves. When I mention taking care of each other, I think about the power and community I've seen within the Mexican community here in Clearwater. The unique thing about Clearwater is how the majority of residents are from Hidalgo, Mexico, and as part of the indigenous community, the Otomi peoples. I believe it is through the family orientation mindset that they have been able to uplift each other by letting them know about resources and opportunities through word of mouth, as well as being there for one another. This is a bit more personal, but when my uncle passed away this past month, I got to meet family I did not even know I had in the area, connect with a multitude of resources, not just nonprofits, but also local businesses and religious organizations to fundraise and work towards healing the loss of my uncle. So through our community, we have been able to work through this difficult time and find strength through our community leaders, business partners, and religious organizations. Based on this, we advance and address our community's most pressing issues by staying connected to our local residents, to build a table where they can bring their seats and stand on the outskirts, listening and helping to give them the tools and resources to advocate for themselves.
Thank you. Deshawn, same question. How do we advance our community and workplace well-being?
So we know that mental health is such a serious thing. And I think a lot of people feel a lot of fear when it comes to approaching or really focusing on their mental health, whether it's the workplace or in the community. So I would say really pushing that aspect and understanding that there's more to mental health than going and sitting in someone's office that you don't know, and spilling your beans and telling them all your deepest issues that you have. Sometimes that could be, again, just fellowshipping with your family, going somewhere, really just kind of taking a break, but also being understanding and compassionate that we can't always fix everything right away. I think especially in leadership, we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, that if something doesn't go the way that we want it to, or that we can't give that resource or that immediate need to that client right away, that kind of comes back to us and we feel those pressures. But understanding that, if something doesn't work again, you have plan B, plan C, plan D, making sure that you can understand that at the end of the day, there's still an opportunity for you to make a way if you can just understand it and see it.
Absolutely. I mean, as a mental health professional over here, I definitely advocate for mental health. We all have issues that we need to deal with, or just some support. I think, the issue in our community is that there's still a lot of taboo about mental health. And a lot of people that don't seek the help they need just because, in our communities, we're crazy if we go to a mental health provider. But I'm a big believer, and it's part of my mission, that really mental health is health. And just like you go to the doctors with a broken bone, you need to go to a mental health provider when your mental health is suffering. And I do think we are all agents of change and can really impact our community on how effective it is to seek mental help when you need it, so that it's for your own well-being. So I definitely am a big advocate for that. But it's interesting sometimes, like even when I opened my business, I opened it in a building that looks like an office building. I didn't name it anything mental health, like it doesn't say mental health in the title of the business. And it was because of that, because I was thinking about our community, about people that might not walk into a building that says mental health on the front. And it's really been impactful to know that nobody knows who's coming into the building, where they're going when they're seeking the mental health. And I think it's made a difference. So I'm definitely a big advocate for that. And that's one of the ways that I feel like I give back to the community, is making sure that they can access the resources without having to jump through those hoops. So talking about our culture and community, our culture and community sometimes put some expectations that seem to not leave room for people to admit that they need rest, break, or step back. And sometimes we feel like we don't even have a choice to keep going. The expectations can have a serious toll on our own health. And my question is, and I'm going to start with Deshawn again, have you had a time where you wanted to give up or felt you needed a break, physically or psychologically? And what was the situation, and how did you overcome it?
Okay. So I'm gonna get a little personal with everybody for a second. So obviously my line of work, I'm dealing with gun violence, mental health, incarceration, people being released from jail. Last year I actually lost my older brother to gun violence, and had to kind of grapple with the fact that the same resources that I was providing people in regards to gun violence and dealing with the loss of their families, I needed that myself. But it was difficult to kind of do that when I was still actively working. So really and truly for me, that's why I said in the beginning, I leaned on those care providers, the people who I send my clients to for mental health services. To be honest, I was also one of those individuals who didn't necessarily feel comfortable with going and seeking out traditional mental health. And that was more so because, I'm already dealing with, other client situations myself. Um, Not necessarily self supporting myself or those kind of things, but I was definitely kind of doing that in terms of self-soothing and not necessarily seeking it out specifically from another individual. Last year or during that year, I actually attended a few months after he passed away. I attended an event called Healing While Black. And in that event, it was everything outside of traditional mental health. The traditional understanding of going and talking to someone. It was parties, it was poetry, it was us having a mindful meditation in the morning at a park. Just all of those things kind of allowed me to really take a moment and deal with what I was, my emotions and what I was kind of going through, and then be comfortable to then go to those therapists and say, okay, I need to then seek this out from you. Like I had that opportunity to say, okay, I can do this. I feel comfortable talking about it, and now I need the help. So that was for me a time frame where I felt like I really wanted to not necessarily give up, but just felt overwhelmed and unsure of where to seek the guidance. And like I said, reaching out to the people who I worked with, and provided or sent my clients to, that was a huge benefit to me because they were already aware of me as an individual. I felt comfortable, and it was something that was untraditional for me not to feel like I was boxed in, but also a extreme, I guess, benefit, because then I was able to talk to my clients about untraditional mental health and helping them to understand that you don't always have to feel comfortable to do it like that or to do it the traditional way right away. Maybe eventually you'll go to that, but there's so many opportunities for you to seek mental health services.
Absolutely. Well, sorry for your loss, and I think it's very good that you share that. A lot of people really just go into their cocoon and really don't deal with those issues. And like you said, there's many opportunities for mental health. Since COVID specifically, we've had a growth in the telehealth, which is, mental health via the computer, which we didn't have before. And now it's so accessible to everybody. You don't have to go into an office. You can access it from home. And that's really important for all of our participants to know, all of our communities to know that really is mental health is much more accessible today than it was before. So Kirsty, same question for you. When have you had these issues and how did you act on it?
I think that the feeling overwhelmed, especially when working at organizations that are constantly working with crisis intervention, is a huge challenge for the team, and then not talking about employees, but the team in general. And I think workload isn't always about what the amount of tasks that you do or the amount of tasks that you have to complete, but it comes to the nature of the job. And sometimes the inefficiencies that we have ourselves, that we have with management, or just different components of the work that we do every day, that we can feel overwhelmed. And I think it's very important to establish a difference between capacity and capability. And capacity being, the amount of job or tasks that we are able to hold on, and capability is what are the resources and what are the tools that we're going to have as a community leader or as a team in an organization. And I think it's very important to mention that part of self-care and how do we feel is also important to know in what environment we are. And then what are the resources in the different organizations or the community that we're leading that we can provide to the teams to have this type of conversations where we can speak about, true needs of employee well-being. And I just wanted to quickly share some tips that I think that have worked when feeling overwhelmed, when feeling overload of work, because sometimes the type of job that we do, there's a very fine line where you can go to your passion to just really bring in your passion and the workload home. And I just wanted to share that as soon as you feel overwhelmed, rest and detach. As soon as you feel stuck, conserve your resources. As soon as you doubt yourself, remind past achievements. As soon as you feel disconnected, reach out to your support system. As soon as you feel unproductive, choose tasks that are more energizing. And as soon as you feel less engaged, lean on your strengths. And self-care is not only about how we care about yourself, but in what environments I were to choose and transform through leadership. So definitely those have been the most impactful for me, especially because as a Latina coming to the US, I've had so many expectations myself and for my family back home, and for the hard work that I want to do for the different community groups that I have worked with, that taking a step back and really validating the hard work that we've been doing, but also understanding how to balance that with our own mental health and with our own self-care. I think it's very important to continue having these types of conversations within the employees and the communities where there's like the active listening, because wellness in employment is not going to be the same in an organization than in a community group as a community leader. And how do we identify both, and how do we bring different strategies? Because nowadays there's different wellness apps that you have that, you know, your employer can provide you, like drink water, meditate. And those are great and innovative resources, but those should be aligned with fostering a great culture within your community team or within your organization. And that's, I think, what's very much important for our self-care. Are we in a direction, and are we in a group that is supporting us, right? Because self-care also comes with the environment that we are in.
Absolutely. So before we move on to the next question, we do have a question from the audience. And we can start, I guess, with Vidi. What are your view on how we can address the trauma affected communities we live in, and how do they start with the healing process? And then Deshaun, if you can do that too.
Okay, hold on. Can you just ask me one more time?
Yes. What are your views on how we can address the trauma affected communities we live in, and how do they start with the healing process?
Okay. So I'm gonna do a little plug for a for something that I'm not necessarily a part of, but it's something that I kind of know that we have here in St. Petersburg, which is the Hub. The Hub is in partnership with People Empowering and Restoring Communities, Gulf Coast Jewish Family Services, and the City of St. Petersburg. And they offer direct supportive services to individuals who are dealing with trauma. So you can go into those locations, and from mental health to financial resources to employment to case management, you can definitely go in and seek that. Now, outside of that, when it comes to dealing with trauma within our own community, I think, and something that I've been kind of working with within Hidden Voices, is understanding how to rebuild the community village. So I personally am a first generation immigrant. My family is from Jamaica. So when my family came here in the 70s, they had a huge religious support system. They had a neighborhood support system. The neighborhoods were different back then, as well as like a family support system. So I think for us, really and truly within our communities, we really need to figure out how we can rebuild that community village, because we all go through things. We all have work and life and troubles and whatever the case is that goes on our daily. But at the same time, making sure that there's other people put in place to kind of help support us when that trauma happens. So those systems can be, for example, Hidden Voices. So for example, if someone has died from gun violence, we go out and provide, we talk to the parents and say, hey, can we help you feed your children for a couple days? We know that that's a stressful situation for you to have to figure out where the next meal is from, and you're dealing with so much already. Let me at least do this. Or we know that the community wants to rally behind you. Can we plan a vigil for you where we have people coming and praying with you and talking about mental health and whatever those situations is? I feel like for us, especially in our communities and dealing with trauma, I think we really need to go back to a place where we are having that community village and supporting one another, because really and truly, that's, to me, the only way that we can really kind of get through it, is being able to lean on your neighbor and understand what resources are available and out there to you.
Absolutely. And I guess I'm going to put a plug in also for the Hispanic Outreach Center and the Hispanic Leadership council, I think they've done it, they do a great job when something happens in the community to really react to that and we had a forum for immigration when everybody was scared of what's going to happen. The governor changed his law. And I think they do a good job of really putting content out to the community to serve our communities and really keep the finger in the pulse of the community. Vidi, since you've been there before, do you have any other insights on that topic?
Yeah, of course. First of all, like I think I'm gonna highlight mostly everything that Deshawn just said. Actually, everything that she just said was actually how I work to heal with my family. So getting like religious support, getting support from communities to fundraise, to send my uncle's body home back to Mexico so he can see his mom one last time, and then just really working with communities. I think we're trying to work with trauma-informed community, or trying to work with trauma affected communities and work to heal ourselves. You really do have to come from the community to know what's going on, to know what's happening with your neighbor. So like for us, for me personally, I have had friends whose family members have passed away, whose friends whose family members are going through cancer treatment right now, and so much is happening, especially in with diabetes, because right now my mom currently is affected by diabetes. I have several uncles and aunts affected by diabetes here. And I know this because I interact with them, I see them, I know the challenges that they're going through. And that's honestly how we can influence, is by having someone who's already a part of the community and bringing them to the table to highlight what's going on in these communities and working to give them the resources, give them the tools, but also be an opening ear and how we can build these tools and resources with them so that we can cultivate that community and cultivate that partnership with these communities. And I do think that that is one of the most important things that we can do to help in these trauma-affected communities.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So my next question is, as a minority community leader, we usually deal and navigate not only our work life, but also have to deal and navigate with our extended families, expectations like, attending events, showing up for visits. Yeah, you're not visiting mom enough, that you're going to hear later. How do you set boundaries between work and your personal life without feeling guilty for not being present all the time for everyone? Kirsty, if you want to take that one first.
Yes, I think understanding cultural complexities, especially coming from a Latino family back in Puerto Rico, and really bringing the information and just really committing. I think there's, especially working this type of social services organizations that require a lot of our energy. And I think it's important to align self-care with the mission that we are working with. I definitely see from a family perspective that, there's expectations to be at certain events, there's expectations to be at certain times to certain meetings. And I think it all comes to the first question that we discuss in this panel, which is what is fulfilling to you and what is keeping you in line to the mission vision of the work that you do every day. And I think when you're happy about that, you can resonate and your family can see that as well. But definitely I also wanted to add that keeping in mind that your job and for the most passion that you have, you still have a family. And how do you keep balance between your family and your commitments as a family, and then also your job? And I think looking into resources of self-care and identifying when do you need a break, or when you can go to that family meeting, but you can join them on FaceTime, but also when you can go to that client or see that client after 5 because you have a family meeting to attend. So it's how do you manage yourself? And at the end of the day, it comes back to what is fulfilling you and what is making you happy, depending on the different family relationships that you might have.
Absolutely. Deshawn, any thoughts on that?
It's still something I'm battling with. I'm being quite honest. I have like I said, I have my mom, my sister. I am very, we're involved in all of each other's lives. So when it comes to setting those boundaries and still showing up for them, I still try to make sure that I show up for my family in any way that I can, just because I know that when I'm going through my things, these are the people that I truly lean on. So I want to make sure they know that I am there for them at all times. But it is really important to set those boundaries and say, hey, mom or sis or whatever, I don't have the bandwidth at this time to really deal with either the work conversations or the family conversations or whatever the case is, but give me a minute and I'll come back to you, or give me some time and then we can rediscuss it, or hey, let's reschedule a time for us to hang out. So I think it's really just that, just being able to compromise with your family, and understanding that, it gets stressful, not just for you, but for them as well. And then having those conversations like, hey, I am going, 'cause sometimes you feel a little uncomfortable to tell your family, I'm going through a lot, so I can't hang out, or I just need a moment to just be alone and without feeling like, you're being standoffish or not communicating with your family. So just really putting that in a space you should feel the most comfortable with the people that you're around. So really letting them know, hey, I need some time to kind of just get myself together and understand what I'm kind of dealing with, and then I can really show back up for you in that space. And that's something that I'm learning every single day and really trying to put into practice with my family and my friends. And it's been a huge help for us to just have that open communication and understand that I'm not trying to ignore you or not be there for you, but just at this specific time, I kind of just need to decompress and go back into myself. So really just open communication is really the biggest thing for me.
Absolutely. I think communication is the key. And I don't know if there's other business owners in this conference, but as a business owner, I think, I have the tendency to work every weekend or every night. When I get home from work, I still have to do something else and keep working and not communicating sometimes with the family, and then they're feeling left out or feeling like we're not paying enough attention. So I think it is important to just prioritize and communicate and really say, you know what, this weekend I really need to spend time with family because they really are missing me, and it's important for them to spend time with me. So yeah, I think prioritizing and communication are the keys for that. But also back full circle to the question of self-care, you also have to take care of yourself. And sometimes the expectations of family, work, community, all of that, is overwhelming and can be overwhelming. So it's important to really pour back into yourself, take care of yourself, and set those boundaries to be able to help everybody, help the community, the work, the family, but also help yourself and not get burned out or completely overwhelmed by whatever's going on. So as we discussed before, our communities and even ourselves as minority leaders put a lot of pressure on ourselves and how we perceive success. Is this something that you have experienced? And if so, how do you interpret failure or manage setbacks? Kirsty, let's start with you.
Yes, I personally moved to the US in 2018 from Puerto Rico, and my family is still home, and I've had a lot of expectations of myself, or how do I want to grow? Where do I want to go? What things I want to do? Not expectations from my family, but expectations that I have built myself. And I think sometimes we live in that rush of growing and getting that promotion, increasing our income, being able to change from one job to another because we want to grow a lot, because we have those expectations, especially as minority leaders here. And I think it's an opportunity that was for me to be present on the time and space that I am right now, and how I have been able to grow. And just speaking of my experience, when I work at the Hispanic Outreach Center, it was the first time I was fully being bilingual. I was very young, and I started as a youth specialist, and I had in charge a lot of students, and I wasn't sure what I was doing. But I have to say that at this point, every space, in every scenario, and every job that I have been able to lead from any seat, I have been able to grow. And I have been able to enjoy my time where in the different spaces that I've had the opportunity to work and learn from. And I think that when you sit down and you take a step back and you look back and you kind of see, the amazing things that you have been able to do and your achievements, is when you understand that you're in the right path. And then, yes, you might be working through continuous learning to get that promotion And yes, you might be working because you want to increase your salary, and having professional and personal goals is very important. And I think it's personally what keeps me motivated every day. But also being present and understanding where you are at now and what is that space giving you. And the HOC was my school and was the reason why that I have been able to grow professionally and personally. So going back and just go kind of seeing every spaces that you have been able to impact. I was just seeing that Alexa Vinuela, who was a student in my programs, won the scholarship. And I got a bit emotional, and seeing Viridiana and sharing this panel with her, it just means that the impact of the HOC, meaning the impact of the leaders that were there a few years ago and the leaders that continue to be there. So always going back and really valuing where you're coming from and where you are going to, and balancing that with your aspirations and your goals, I think for me takes away all of the expectations that I may have to contribute and support my family back home. Because at the end of the day, I am grateful and I can see the impact that I was doing a few years back, the impact that I continue doing now, and the motivation of where I want to go next.
Awesome. Vidi, any thoughts on that?
Not too many thoughts. I do often experience a lot of pressure, but like Christy said, it's a lot of pressure that I put on myself. In terms of managing setbacks, I think a lot of the setbacks that I have experienced have been internal. So a lot of like mental health, and those are things that I have managed through therapy and also journaling. I find journaling to be very important, and I've been able to see kind of how I've developed throughout the years, through like just looking back and seeing other strategies that I have used that worked for me then, but don't work for me now. And I think that's so important because I think as people and individuals, we tend to grow and we tend to change and seek out new things when it comes to managing our mental health. And that's important. And it's important to recognize that you will be in a different mindset, in a different space. The more that you continue to look into your mental health and look to kind of help yourself. And that it does take a lot of time. And honestly, I don't even think there's ever going to be an end to being your best self. And I think that's both beautiful in itself, and trying to like better yourself. So yeah.
Well said. I feel like you've taken my job about talking about mental health. You've done it all. Awesome. Deshawn, there's a question from the audience, so I'm going to ask you first. What challenges have you encountered in bridging the gap between advocacy and direct case management? What do you do to overcome them?
The challenges that I've really faced is empowering the client to overcome obstacles. Sometimes when they're going through their process or they're going through the system of resources or whatever the case is, it can be discouraging. You have to wait for certain things, or certain things may not come to you right away. So I think really just talking to them about, hey, you're farther even now trying to get yourself together, trying to get these resources than you were when you first walked in the door. So really kind of just reminding them to continue to be grateful, continue to push themselves, and understanding that they have that support. I try to make sure that I'm supportive as much as I can, and understanding having those like real conversations with them. I don't try to have it from a case manager to the client standpoint. I understand professionalism and all of that. So that doesn't go out the window, but obviously, meeting that person where they are so that they feel comfortable with actually understanding that you're trying to help me. You're not just here for your job. You actually care about where I end up, and understanding that, I may have pitfalls just like I do. We're all human, and just making sure I can be there for them.
Awesome. Kirsty, any thoughts on that one?
Yes, I think that we often in these spaces, we wear many hats, right? In the job that we do, we want to do a lot and we want to support all of the community. And sometimes we can miss the part of strategic planning and making sure that we are planning effectively to who are we going to support and how. And I think that where the gap comes, where we can advocate, right? But then what is the direct help and support that individuals and participants are receiving? And then when we look at that, I would say that definitely making sure who are we impacting, what's that group, what are their needs, what are we learning from that group, and develop a plan that supports your team, that it's not overworking your team, that it's helping your team with self-care and wellness resources, but then that we strategically are creating a process to support them and then evaluate how are we providing services. And I think often we want to wear many hats in our job, and that's kind of where we end being overworked, and then we're overwhelmed, and then the participants that we receive sometimes are in crisis, and we want to give them all and we want to help them all because we are working with passion and mission. And then sometimes we want to take a step back and we want to plan ahead and see, okay, what's this group of participants are we supporting? What are the specific needs, and how can we target that? So we're advocating, but we're also offering the correct services in a way that we are organized, and we're not putting a lot of the energy that it's not, helping us with our self-care.
Absolutely. So this one's kind of a little spin, because I thought it was interested. We really don't talk about this a lot. We sometimes hear from our community, our families and friends, things like, now you think you're better than us, or did you forget where you came from? And my question is, have you experienced any of those? And if so, how did you manage? What advice did you have for other emerging leaders on how to address that? Dejan, let's start with you.
Okay. I personally have not experienced that. But I will say change is required. Change is inevitable. We should be changing. No one should want to stay the same. And I feel like honestly, when those kind of conversations come up, and jealousy is the word that's coming to mind, but jealousy is not the real word that I want to use. It could be disappointment. Maybe that individual's life or what they're going through isn't exactly what they wanted to be at that time. And if you truly care about that person, you can have that conversation with them. Like, why do you feel as if I may be acting this kind of way, or my circumstance is not as dire as it was before? So now I am feeling better, not just, in financial, but also my mental health space. Like that can be a huge, I guess, indicator of someone feeling as if you're being different, or whatever the case, you're not in that miserable place that you may have been in at the time. So I would say, talk to that person and say, hey, maybe there's a way I can elevate you. And if I can't elevate you, then maybe I need to move around you and remove you from my life. But at the same time, sometimes I think it really can just be that person not understanding how to elevate themselves. So they kind of have that, I guess that way of using those phrases or those words as not really understanding their own place and where they are. So sometimes they just need a little bit of support to get to where you want them to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes they see you changing, they see you progressing, and it's not jealousy. I agree. I think it's more fear of change. Like, oh, she's going places, she's moving up, and I'm stuck down here. And I think so that empowering them to elevate them, like you said, I think is really important in that conversation as well. Vidi, any thoughts?
Yeah, I am all too familiar with these comments. Not just from friends, but also family. I come from a first generation household, and I come from a single parent household. So often I do get these comments because my mom did it all by herself, and people are wondering, well, how did she do it? She was all alone, like, and how did her daughter like come to be where she's at, and I'm still like where I'm at. And I think honestly, I think a lot of the people who I've seen, like kind of what Deshaun was saying, who have made these remarks are people who continue to stay where they're at or did not advance to where they wanted to in life. And for me, that does hurt me, not because not just their comments, but also because, you know, they're supposed to be kind of like my community who's supposed to support me and push me to be better. But I also recognize that I also have to push my community and make them better. And that's kind of why I'm here. I'm back home. I'm really wanting to take what I've learned, that I've gone to different places, gone and done different things, and bring it back home, and helping that first generation community to advance, because I don't want to do this all by myself. I paved the path, but now I'm paving it so that it's easier for them to continue on to the journey that I've taken, or make their own journey, but knowing that they have a resource and support. And so for me, I've seen that a lot of my cousins, particularly males, are not advancing into those kind of like careers, not because they can't, but because they think that all that they can do is be in the construction site or be cooking or in like McDonald's or something of that sort. But I've talked to them, I've pushed them, I've told them like there's more out there, that you can use what you love to transfer that. And so one particular example that I'm thinking of is my cousin Osvaldo. He actually loves weightlifting. He found his love for it back in high school, when he was wrestling. And he thought that he didn't really think much of it at the time, until I had told him like, hey, like, do you ever want to work with athletes or maybe look into physical therapy? And now come to find out, I come back and he's already going to USF for physical therapy, letting me know like, hey, I'm so glad you let me know about this opportunity, that this profession was out there, because I would have never known. And so I feel like him going to SBC, finding that he loves what he does in weightlifting, and now wanting to transfer that into something that can, you know, make him money, because money is important, and support him financially and his family. Like, I think that that is just so important. And I feel like that's just another connection into helping our communities, because physical therapy is honestly not highlighted enough, especially within the sedentary lifestyle that we lead, or working every day, like standing up. Like, it's a lot of labor, and we sometimes don't know how to like work our bodies, work all of our muscles. And so I feel like he's going to be able to help out our community a lot in that aspect. And so I believe that this is how I'm also trying to push my community to venture out and do other things, and also just by mentorship. I've done a lot of mentorship with high school students and first generation college students, because I recognize the barriers, the challenges that comes with being first gen in these post-secondary education systems, especially in predominantly white institutions, where you don't have that representation, where you often don't have that connection with your professors, with staff. And I'm getting a little bit emotional, because that was me. And so now I'm trying to see how I can better that. It's why I got into education policy, and advocacy, because I do think that it is possible to push our generations of BIPOC individuals to go into these spaces, so that we can be represented, and have the knowledge and education that should be available to all students.
Awesome. Thank you. Kirsty, any thoughts?
No, I think
I think Vidi said it all for everybody.
I continue to say the powerful of organizations like the Hispanic Outreach Center, the power of organizations that go into community that are able to identify need, the power of women leading from different seats at the Hispanic Outreach Center, particularly because the steps that they took with Viridiana, the mentorship that was provided to her, is what is bringing her to shine to this panel today in this conference, to be able to impact not only family members, but to become a mentor, to become an advocate. And we go back to see that these conversations are so much needed to continue empowering and providing the services that we do. But then at the same time, within this topic, to continue supporting and empowering our team with wellness strategies, so we continue to do the job. And I think it's just, yeah, she said it all. She's great. And I'm just happy to see how the leaders from the HOC are now leading this panel, are now becoming mentors and supporting others.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad you're the future of America. I'm so glad to have been part of this panel with you guys. This is awesome. Absolutely awesome. So I do have a last question, but goes together a little bit with that. There's a question from the audience asking, how do you ask for help from your employer when you need to focus on your mental health? So I'm going to talk about it a little bit first, and then I'll ask you. I think it's important. Most employers have an EAP program, which is an employee assistance program, which provides counseling for free to the employer. So always go talk to your HR department, find out what the benefits are, if they have that benefit, and definitely have, natural conversations with whoever your boss is about, look, I'm struggling, because it's not, if you're not 100%, you're not going to give them 100%. You're not going to be 100% of the job. You're not going to be able to do your job as best as you can. So really is figuring out how you have that conversation with your employer. If they don't have EAP, can you have the time off, the hour for lunch or whatever, so you can go see a therapist, or even from your office? Can I have this hour so I can see my therapist via telehealth because it's affecting my functioning at work? And I think most, as an employer, and most employers, I think, are grateful to be able to have those conversations because they know how it impacts your productivity, your ability to work, to function on a daily basis. And I think all of us are better if our mental health is better. So really is advocating for yourself. If your boss doesn't listen to you, then go to HR. That's what they're there for, is to help you with that. And for sure, somebody had asked before about telehealth. Telehealth is very common right now. You can get services via telehealth from most of the providers. We're here in Pinellas County if you need us, but there's a lot of providers that are providing the same services. So it's whoever you feel comfortable with. But I think the first conversation is bringing it up to your employer. It is affecting me. I really need some help and some time to be able to deal with whatever's going on, and then reach out to a provider and get some assistance. And again, if they have an EAP program, taking advantage of those free sessions so that you can improve your mental health. Anybody wants to jump into that question?
I wanted to quickly share, telehealth is amazing, and there's also wellness coach. Organizations are innovating, providing wellness coach opportunities. And for example, you have your wellness coach, and then if you drink water or do one meditation a day, or you do a few steps a day, you log that into your wellness coach, and then by the end of the month, you might be winning a gift card. And those are great resources and innovative solutions to bring to the workplace to promote wellness strategies. And I would say, of course, that's intertwined with the fostering a great culture, but definitely telehealth, support coach, wellness coach, and having open conversations with your team and saying, hey, we're doing an amazing job for the community that we're serving. We are wearing many hats. We're working out there. We're advocating, but we need also support for us as employees and as a team or as a community group to continue supporting. So telehealth, wellness app, and different resources that as a leader that we can provide to our team, I think it will be great and a great opportunity to see what are the differences in the productivity and also in how we continue supporting our community if we need to work on the environment well-being that we are in the different spaces.
Absolutely. I think self-care is so important for all of us. So this last question is sort of hitting the same topic, but that was more about the employer. So I want you to be quick because we don't have a lot of time left, but I want to make sure that we leave the audience with a few tips of what we do. So sometimes you hear the phrase, you have to take care of your of you before you can take care of others. Or if you jump on a plane, put your oxygen mask on before you put it on whoever needs assistance. How true is that statement for you, and what tools, resources, or strategies do you use to ensure that you're taking care of yourself that we can leave the audience with? Vidi, let's go with you first.
Yeah, so for me, I actually use social media. So I use Instagram a lot, and I follow a lot of people. So over Gen Poverty, Fayette Niham, and Jasmine, and I'll link these handles for Instagram. But I follow them because I think that they're very good in terms of giving me tools, resources, and strategies that help to take care of myself, not just physically and mentally, but also financially. I think a lot of people do overlook the financial aspect, that in order to take care of yourself, you also have to take care of the bank. And so I think that that is just so important, and especially because not a lot of our students in public education get that financial literacy that they need. And coming from first generation backgrounds, it makes it even more difficult for them to learn about these budgeting and saving tips. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to do for myself and help to build myself generational wealth, as well as health is wealth, because that's so important. And using these Instagram handles, using these people who also identify as first generation students or first gen in general, and how they are navigating the economy is really important for me. And so these are just kind of the tools and resources that I use, as well as journaling. Like, I think I have a lot of hobbies, and that's kind of what breaks the bank sometimes. So like journaling, photography, scrapbooking. I love collecting stationery. And so, yeah, those are just kind of the quick things that I do.
Awesome. Deshaun?
I definitely agree with a lot of what Vidi just said in regards to the financial, because you can't really do a lot of things if you're not financially secure. So definitely I agree with her on that. But obviously, like we mentioned before, leaning into the family aspect is something that's really huge, because usually that is your safe space and allows you to get out of a place where you're feeling overstimulated. You can kind of, even if it's just hanging out with them and watching TV or whatever the case is, you can definitely do that. Similar to her, I use things like social media. I have a couple different pages that I have that are motivational pages. I listen to music, and then my biggest thing that I've gotten really into over the past year is my physical well-being, and making sure that fitness is a huge part of my regimen in terms of reducing the stress, the stress that comes on my body from working or whatever the case is, or eating or just sleeping wrong. I definitely made sure that getting in, even if it's 30 minutes of just walking, being able to clear my mind has been a huge, huge help for me. So I definitely would say, find what your hobbies are, find what you're interested in, and lean into that. And that way, whenever you are having those stressful moments, you know exactly what to go to.
Absolutely. Kirsty?
For me, I think it's a lot of connecting with my family and my mom, for example, especially because I have most of my family in Puerto Rico. So I think those connections and those conversations, whether it's about her telling me all of her day, or she's venting with me, or I'm venting with her, it's just we stay close that way. And I think that just gives me a lot of energy. I've recently tried hot yoga, and every time I'm in a session, I regret myself of trying it. But I think it's an opportunity to challenge myself and get out there and just promote flexibility. And I think overall, I have to say that I have the privilege of working with a company that supports my work stress related issues and through like wellness. And I think that makes self-care a lot more important. And that's why I've been advocating during this call that it's very important in the environment that you are working in, and what the resources are for you to be able to continue taking care of yourself and your close.
Absolutely. I think connection is very important. I second everything everybody says. I mean, going out in nature, just 5 minutes here in the ocean, hear the trees, hear the birds, is very important. Exercise, journaling, meditation, all of those things are great things, and definitely family. I have a brand new grandson that I adore, so he's my stress reliever when I get home. So it's definitely family connection is very important. That's the end of our panel. I really want to thank all three of you. You are definitely great leaders, and America's safe now. I feel better that you're running the country soon. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and really sharing all of your personal stories. That really was impactful.
Yes,
Yaya?
indeed, Tamara. Thank you so much. And I think Hispanic Outreach Center should feel very proud of seeing our little kids growing and being so independent and strong leaders. And thank you, Dashawn, for being vulnerable. That's what a leader is all about, showing your vulnerability and say, it is okay, it is okay. So thank you so much for this outstanding panel. And like Viridiana mentioned, I think you read my script. Self-care is an investment. It's an investment in order for us to keep and increase our productivity, longevity, and effectiveness to accomplish our goal. Our personal well-being allows us to model the behavior we want from our team. Healthy ways to cope with stress increase our emotional intelligence and resilience to face challenges or adversities we face every day. Now, I would like to, before my closing remarks, to bring back Maria, who is going to give us a surprise to our most active attendees. So, Maria.
So absolutely. So again, thank you so much. We're all learning from each other just by reading the chat. I'm learning also from the attendees. And we would like to offer two, we have two giveaways. So we're gonna have, let me find the names. I believe, oh my goodness, technology is getting to me. Yami Tejada or Tejeda, and Juliana Day. So Yami Tejera and Juliana Day. So please connect with me after the conference because you have leadership tools coming your way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. And when I said, I want to see the chat on fire, there's a reason behind that. But besides learning from each other, as Maria mentioned. Well, it is the end of our great conference. And on behalf of the Diversity Committee, the Intercultural Advocacy Institute, and our sponsor organizations, we truly thank you for your time, attention, and engagement this morning. It has been an honor to share this experience with you. Please scan the QR code that is being shown right now, as we would like your feedback so that we can better plan future events for you, and hopefully in person next year. We will also share the link of the recording of this conference that will be soon available at the Hispanic Outreach Center's website. I would like to finish with the following well-known inspiring quote. A leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way. Leadership is the capacity to translate a vision into reality. There are three essentials to leadership: humility, clarity, and courage. Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. And I truly believe our speakers embody every word from these quotes. And we hope we are leaving this conference, or you are leaving this conference feeling inspired and empowered to lead from any seat. I wish each of you a beautiful and safe Friday and weekend. Thank you, and see you next year.